Welcome back to The Night Shift, your safe space for talking about UFOs, UAPs, NHI, disclosure, and everything else that's going on. So much going on. It's a busy week. Got a great show for you tonight. It's packed. Got our panel of experts here to help us unpack all the news that's fit to print, or all the news that's shit to print, depending on who you talk to or what picture you look at. We're going to talk about the Lou Elizondo kerfuffle. I guess we could call it the kerfuffle. It's going on with the latest Lou photo. We like to call a little segment, we like to call Lou's Clues. What the fuck's going on with Lou Elizondo? We're going to try to decipher it. We're going to talk about Eric Davis's crazy interview where he talked about everything that's going on inside the program as far as he could tell, and drop some bombshells, if I can say that. I know that word gets abused quite a bit, usually with a couple of arrows attached to it. But this is actually bombshell week. We have a lot of bombshells this week. So we'll get into Eric Davis. We're going to talk about Hal Puthoff on Joe Rogan. And we're going to talk about, we're going to ask Eric how far he wants to go with some information that he may or may not know about some things that are possibly going on somewhere in America. We'll talk about it. Thanks for being with us. It's great to have you all here. Let's see who's in the chat today. Rain of Rain. Hey, Rain, what's up? Ebony McKickass is here. Obi-Wan Shinobi. Brian Park. Fawn Miller. Hey, Fawn. Geraldine is here. Zelda's in the house. And who else? Chris is here. Of course, the heart and soul of the Mod Squad. Pat Gallagher. Haley. Cosmic Serpent. It's great to see all of you. Butch. Psionic Man. George. Great to see all of you. Thank you for being here. Let's fire up that chat. Smash that like button. Let's get some, I don't know. Let's juice that algorithm a little bit. The more you guys chat and hit the like button, the better we do. So just like light it up. All right. We got a full house today. I'm joined by our expert panel of guests who are going to help us dig deep into all of the stuff we have to cover. I'm joined by UAP Therapist Erik Schlimmer. We've got host of the Others from Another podcast, Dan Cleary. Of course, Pavel, host of Psicoactivo, the hit podcast Psicoactivo YouTube channel. And last but not least, the wind beneath my wings, producer, musician, artist extraordinaire, Xander Jones. Welcome, guys.
What's happening?
Shall I squeeze myself in here? All right.
Yes.
You guys
Can we
get
all shrink down?
Get out of the way. There we go.
Come on.
Nice.
The Brady Bunch, you know?
I have to look down. Hey, guys.
Given the insanely busy week we've had with news, it's very appropriate to just bring everybody back, because I'm sure we've all not had time to sit to watch absolutely everything. So between us, we've probably seen everything.
It takes 5 of us to cover the amount of stuff there is in a single week now. At least 4 to really get through it all. It's been really busy. You're fired up, too, about this Lou Elizondo thing. Xander was really angry before the show. He was, like, typing furiously.
Concerned.
Raised voice.
Not
You're
angry.
usually very chill. Should we start with that? You want to just dig right into the Lou Elizondo thing? I think it's what's on everybody's mind. It's like the #1 post on the internet right now.
We have to.
Okay. Probably best to just show this moment. I've put the subtitles on because anybody that's watched this knows how poor the audio is. And it's maybe a couple minutes long, but...
Should we set this up for the people who don't know what this is?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, this was at the Anna Paulina Luna's, it wasn't a formal hearing, right? What was it called? What did they call it? Gave it a different name. They didn't have to
Understanding UAP, Science, National Security and Innovation, House Oversight and Accountability. And it's the UAP Disclosure Fund.
It was put on by the UAP Disclosure Fund. As I understand it, they didn't have to swear an oath when they did this. It was a little bit less formal than the previous hearings, but it was Tim Gallaudet, Avi Loeb, Lou Elizondo was there, Eric Davis was there. Who else? Am I missing anybody?
Mellon.
Mellon was there.
Dr. Anna Brady Estevez was there.
Anna Brady Estevez. And during this presentation, Lou is talking about ostensibly a reporting mechanism that should exist but does not exist for UAPs. And then as he's talking about this, he holds up a photograph of what he says is a 1,000-foot wide UFO. And if you don't know what you're looking at, it could look like a UFO, but there's a lot of controversy about this picture. It's blowing up Reddit today. And then we'll get into it in just a second. Xander, you want to take it away?
So as I said, it's not going to be very loud, but you can read the subtitles in this. Yeah, I think they are. They are. And tell you what, whilst we do that, we'll just may as well whilst we're here.
I'm not
'Cause you
seeing the
can't hear
subtitles.
Oh, hell yeah.
Hold on.
Well,
There we go. You should be able to see them now, right?
Yeah.
You're right. Excellent.
Everything sounds cooler with this music.
So he's received permission to release this photograph today. And here is...
Look at the shadow being cast, is what he said.
It will zoom in a second.
This photo was taken by a civilian pilot. Now, why is this important? What else?
It'll pick them up again in a second. Oh, it hit right there.
Look at that.
Not a file system, not an infrared system, but a civilian pilot, an average person with an average camera at 21,000 feet. And the object potentially is anywhere between 600 to 1,000 feet in diameter. And it is silver. Now, I cannot vouch for the veracity of this photograph. I didn't take it, but this is an example of one of many incidents involving commercial and private pilots. Guess what? They don't know where to report it. Okay. Congress has no idea that this is happening. That's the problem. Why is this relevant? Because right now you're going to hear from two speakers. I'll introduce you to them. Okay.
Okay. Hang on.
I feel like that's enough context.
Yeah.
And then do you have the close-up of the photo again? So
Yeah, hold on.
so he holds up this photo and everyone's on the internet. Someone screen grabbed it, posted it. It wound up on Reddit. It went thermonuclear on Reddit. It immediately on UFOB was like, I don't know. I checked it after it'd been up for like an hour. I had like 3,000 upvotes. And the team, I guess the people who were talking about this, at least in UFOB, sent it over to another Reddit subreddit, which was the map people. What was it called? It's called like...
Is it
There's a whole-
GeoGuessers?
GeoGuessers. To say like, where was this photo taken? Can they identify the actual location of this photo? And they found it. And what they found was that's not a UFO at all. What did they find? You want to tell people?
Yeah,
Let's
so
get
I'll show
that
you
fire.
I'll do the comparison side by side.
Also, the image itself says something about four corners, near four corners in the upper left-hand corner of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, this is effectively what that is, including the coordinates, and it's... we don't get these in the UK, but there's some sort of irrigation thing. Am I right in thinking that?
It's a big irrigation thing that just stretches out like 1,000 feet and it rotates in a circle and it just sprays water. It's like, sprinklers, and it's just for irrigating crops.
And these are quite
you've
common,
driven
right?
If you fly over any farmland or if you drive past it, you'll see these things all over the place. Like anywhere in America you go where they're growing stuff.
And this took Reddit approximately half an hour to figure out.
So in simple, plain language, Xander, spell it out for people. Like, why is this so fucked up?
God damn it, Lou.
Yeah, there you go. There's the plain spelling it out. So
Oh, man.
there's a number of things that need to be addressed here, and we can probably read Lou's response to this because
Yeah.
obviously he knows now the reality of what that photo is. So maybe we can read that tweet as well, just to add one last piece of context.
The last nail in the coffin.
Oh,
Oh wow, is that what? So when did this tweet go out? This went up
3 hours ago.
3 hours ago. Lou tweeted. Do you want to read it?
So as you know, I am the first to admit my mistakes, but this is not one of those times. The facts regarding this photo I shared from a private pilot, as I emphasized several times yesterday during the forum, are as follows. The specific photo has been provided to me by a private pilot, and it was provided the morning of the forum. The photo has not been vetted. The dimensions he quoted, were the pilot's own assessment. And then he goes on to talk about the purpose of actually showing the photo was to highlight the need for a reporting mechanism for anomalous sightings, basically. And as always, I will put all of the links to all of this stuff in our Discord live links if anybody wants to read this in their own time. So I think that's all the context. Anybody's welcome at this point to jump in with their thoughts and opinions.
Pavel, go. Pavel,
Yeah,
go.
Pavel can go if he wants.
Yeah, leave me to the Sharks, huh? So I got a couple of things that I do want to say. I'll start with the more positive ones. I think that if any more pictures or videos start coming out like this from bigwigs, I think it's a good idea and a good sign that the community at least is united in debunking anything that comes out. That was great to see, in my opinion. And it's proof that you can't really fool people anymore like that. And I like that sense of unity from the community, even though they still bicker all the time amongst themselves and dox each other and harass each other and all that stuff. At least when it comes to the data, they united here and they quickly got the truth out and what that photo really was. On the other hand, Lou already did this once, and I tried to justify what he did back then with that mothership picture. And you know what they say, fool me once, shame on you. This is the second time. I honestly don't believe that an intel guy who is highly trained in how to relay messages and how to decode them made us a second mistake like this. So,
And who has seen probably tens of thousands of aerial photographs and
Yes.
images of places all over the world that obviously he's seen this shit before.
so either this was intentional or somebody's given him information intentionally to model the waters or muddy the waters, as they say. I don't know which is which, honestly, and this is me being completely transparent here. I think Lou behaves properly and he treats people well. That's all I've ever seen him do. But there are some dark stories in the internet about people surrounding Lou and the way they behave with people that don't like Lou and that attack Lou. And that can't be ignored anymore. It's just a conversation that needs to happen. And it doesn't just happen with Lou. It happens with all the bigwigs. They all make mistakes. They have problems of accountability. Some of them have even conflicts of interest. And whenever you try to address them or point them out, you either get blocked, you get attacked, or you get ostracized from that community because they have a tight circle where they coordinate everything that they put out. And this happens. This is not a conspiracy. This clearly happens. I mean, just in the past week alone, we had Harold Malmgren coming out. We had Jack Ballet. We had Hal Puthoff. We had, who else was? We had yesterday's event. We had Jim Semivan on the Soul Foundation last Friday. Mm-hmm. That still hasn't come out to the public, but he was also part of that. So it's very clearly coordinated. And I don't think that they understand that the community is growing and more people with similar amounts of clout or followers or important voices are starting to become part of this. And if they really want for this topic to be mainstream, they need to understand that they cannot be in control. Nobody should be leading this. It should be a group effort on all accounts. And they haven't understood this yet. And that is my main problem. The secrecy around all of this, you know? And whenever you question, it's what happens, man. It's either you play the game or you're just not part of the club. And I really don't agree with that. Never have.
Dan, Eric,
Eric, go
what
ahead.
do you guys think?
I can't agree more. I am familiar with that earlier photo, which turned out, I believe, to be a chandelier reflecting in a window. And I actually hadn't seen this till right now. I was not familiar with this photo, though I heard about it. It makes no sense to me that someone as educated and highly trained as Elizondo would think this is a UAP when it's not. I mean, it's just beyond comprehension. And I was taking some notes, but I was, of course, listening. And he said so he shows the photo and he says two things. Now, I cannot vouch for the veracity of this photo. And then the coup de grace, the photo has not been vetted. If you cannot talk about the veracity of this image with confidence, and it has not been vetted, why are you holding it up? Do you not have better photos to choose from? It's just beyond comprehension that we have somebody who was duped or got sloppy or something like this, and then on top of that says, I really don't know much about it. Then why are you holding it up in this very important meeting? I just don't get it.
I completely agree. Like, he's supposed to be one of the people that's leading us through this, navigating us through this minefield of UFO stuff. We're supposed to be able to trust what he says, and he's supposed to be as professional as possible. How does this happen once, and how does it happen twice only a few months later? It is pretty crazy and frustrating, and it makes it very easy to poke holes in a lot more stuff, and that's the part that sucks most.
What do you guys think about his response to the uproar? I mean, he's saying it's a context thing, and in the context of what I was trying to say, it makes sense. I was saying that this is something that somebody wanted to report. There's no place to report it. Can you give him any wiggle room on that?
I'll say on this, if you want to be pedantic, yes, he doesn't say this is I believe this is a flying saucer. He does in his tweet say this is purely, I did this to highlight the fact that we need a reporting system. But there are problems with the way he's done this. And Dan, you pointed this out earlier. I'm going to show this on screen. So right now, if you search UFO on Google,
Yeah.
this is the result.
Yep.
UFO image shown at U.S. congressional hearing debunked. 1,000-foot UFO allegedly spotted over four corners, taken by a commercial pilot. UFO image shown at U.S. congressional hearing debunked. UFO image shown at U.S. congressional hearing debunked. The entire point of needing some sort of reporting system is completely out the window because what's he reporting there? He's reporting a picture of an irrigation farm.
Can you show, Xander? I'm pulling these photos up of the farms just so people who don't know what we're talking about here can see what the actual irrigation system. Can you show my screen real quick? Okay, so this is called a center pivot irrigation system, and it basically looks like this from the ground. If you've ever driven through farm country and you've seen one of these, this is what it is. It's a top-down irrigation system, and it's used by farmers to basically spray water straight down on their crops, and it covers a huge area, and it just kind of rolls in a circle. And if you fly above one, it looks kind of like this. Let's see. Here's one.
Yeah.
Hopefully this will come up. Yeah. So you can see, it's this round. It looks exactly like what it is. And the space, if you move one from one place to the next, sometimes the circle next to it can look a different color from the air. And Xander, you made a really great point about this earlier before we went live. You were saying that any pilot who spent any amount of time in the air over
Especially over
any
the
farm
US,
at
yeah.
all would know exactly what this is, because they'd see it the whole time they were up there. It wouldn't just appear. They would see it from different angles. Can you explain?
So this is why photos of UAP and Tic Tacs and stuff are such a letdown. It's because when you're seeing it in real life, however far away you are triangulating that object with your own eyes, and that's why when people say I saw it with my own eyes, it means so much, something completely different. Somebody seeing a Tic Tac with their own eyes and then taking a photo of it, it is not the same thing. But if you're flying at, I think this was reported to be taken at 20,000 feet, you're going to see that on the ground for a number of minutes. You're going to see it change in perspective. You're going to see it be completely static. And what's more is you're going to see what around it. So these things normally come in bunches. And I'll share screen again. Just bear with. So this is, I put the coordinates in on Google Maps. And here it is, right? So this is exactly where it is. It looks a bit different because over time, these are fields, essentially. They do change in their looks and stuff. But I assure you, this is the same place. And then if you look around, look, there's some up here. So did the same pilot think that was a UFO? Or did he just, fly past that for half an hour and also realize, yes, it's just, look, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. There's
There's
no way.
10 of them right there. Yeah,
There is no way the person that gave Lou that photo didn't know what he was looking at, especially if he's a pilot.
So let's tease this out a little bit more. Eric, you've got military background. You've probably looked at a lot of aerial photographs in your time. How familiar should this be to anybody who's looked at aerial photographs of an area?
It's incredibly obvious. I'm in Colorado. They're all over the West. They're also in the Midwest, but we have just so much open space here. And I didn't even think of that. Xander made a great point. It's like no pilot would not know what this is. It's like
There are very few
everywhere.
passengers that wouldn't know.
Yeah, especially.
God damn it, Lou.
Yeah, and he didn't even say a private pilot. It's not like I don't know anything and I'm taking a flight lesson and take a photo. This is a commercial pilot. I mean, it's no stranger than you fly over a city block and it's square and you're like, oh my God, I saw a square UAP.
So let me ask. So Eric, as a military guy, if someone handed you a photo, or it's like we know Lou's background and what he claims, someone hands him this photo, how, just on the scale of 0 to 100, like how fucked up is it that he just looked at it and then held it up in front of a room full of people and was like, yeah, this is a UFO. Like,
it's like 100 and one.
Let's be clear.
It's off the scale.
Regardless of
it's
what
off
he
scale.
said it was, the fact of the matter is he showed up he held up a picture of a farm at a UAP hearing and said, this is an anomalous photo that was reported to me. He doesn't have to say it's a UFO. He's at a UAP hearing.
Right.
This is the impression people are going to get of us as a community. Because what's worst is, as Pavel pointed out, Lou is a top dog. People that don't know about UAP, if they search ufology or UAPs, they're going to come across Lou and they're going to think he is probably one of the people that knows the most about UAP. And now they've just seen him show a picture of a farm at a UAP
it calls
hearing.
into question not only like what he actually knows, but calls into question his entire decision-making stream of thought about it. Like a guy just walked up to you 5 minutes ago and gave you a photograph. This guy you don't know, you've never met, you don't talk to. He just walked up and gave it to you, and now you're going to walk into this room full of people in Congress, and you're going to explain to them something about this. Like, we don't know what you're looking at. Like, how can you do that? You're an intelligence guy, a counter intel guy to boot. You should know. So the question obviously you have to ask, like, did they set him up? Did someone walk up to him and were like, knowing, Xander, what you said would happen, that the internet would pick up on this immediately, and the amplified story that people would wind up with is that these people are a bunch of idiots. Was this a sabotage attempt to get him to look like a fool twice in a row?
So, like, the options really are: does Lou get just far too excited far too quickly, which is not a good trait to have when you're supposed to be a rational intelligence analyst, or is he doing this intentionally? Those are basically the only two options we have at the moment. You can't claim we need a reporting mechanism for irrigation farms. It's just not a thing. Like,
Yeah.
you may as well have held up a picture of a puppy. They are exactly the same in meaning. Like, neither of which are UAP and should not be held up in a UAP hearing.
In Lou's defense, though, the picture on its own is it looks pretty cool. Like when I first saw on Twitter, like the image of him holding it from afar, like a screenshot, I was like, oh shit, that's exciting. That's kind of cool.
I
But
thought the
then-
same thing.
Yeah, I was pumped. It looked like, oh, what? Look at that shadow. Look at this thing casting this immense shadow. I get the lore of the picture, but like, yeah, you're the guy, man. What the fuck are you? You're shitting your pants twice in a few months in front of everybody. Like, stop it.
Would your reaction be, this photo's so good, I'm going to take it to the government and show it
Yeah.
to them? Like,
Yeah.
no, you're going to look at it for 5 minutes, and then after probably about 10 minutes, you're going to be like, oh, hold on a minute. It looks a little bit like those things that are everywhere.
Yeah. How about this? Like, Lou, you're gonna speak in front of Congress again. Maybe check this thing out before you bring it and show it. You know what I mean?
As soon as he lifted up his arm, I was like, oh no.
Really?
Yeah, because images and videos are no longer viable.
Grandpa Lou.
We should like get that through people's thick skulls, man. It's no longer viable. We need a consensus of different things, testimony, documents, and videos and pictures, but just a single picture unvetted, you can't do that anymore. That's a rookie mistake. You can't do that.
He should know that. He should know that.
Yeah.
I
He
think
does
you
know that. So what's going on here? If he knows, he knows what he's looking at. If we're assuming that he knows what he's looking at, and he looked at that picture, he must know, right? Like, even the first time you fly in an airplane, it's not that you'd never seen it before and it looks like a UFO. You'd look down and you'd see 10 of them and you'd go, well, that's normal. It's a part of the ground. It's cool. It looks like a circle, but like, no one should look at that and think it's a UFO. The only reason I thought it was a UFO, like Dan said, when I first saw the picture, was I saw a fuzzy screen grab of a picture of him holding it up, and it was from a distance. And so I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, without any context, it does look like a disc. But as soon as you get a better, clearer picture of it, like if I was holding that in my hand in the room, if you were standing next to Lou when he was looking at it, it'd be obvious what it is. So what is he doing? Is he just an idiot, or is there something going on here? Like, what's wrong?
I had a talk with someone last night who knows Lou, and we were talking about this exact thing. And this person said to me that Lou, his intentions truly are in the right place. He really does care. He's not a disinfo guy, but he does get very excited and doesn't do the homework. So it sounds like it's coming from a good place. It's just he can't do that. And apparently people have approached him and talked to him about this thing about like, dude, you gotta slow down. You know, if he's one of those cops that would just like shoot first and ask questions later. You know what I mean? But yeah, I do think his intentions are in the right place. I don't think he's doing this on purpose. It's so unfortunate.
You know, I'm going to make an analogy here because I've had this example all my life with Jaime Maussan in Mexico. And when Jaime was first starting in the 80s, he was like the guy. Like, he was even getting information that was better than the U.S., than people in the U.S. And there was a time when some of the people in the U.S., in the researching community, didn't like that he was getting all that information. And they started planting stuff on him. But he became so jaded and part of a machine that puts out content at some point that he doesn't even care for checking on veracity of a lot of things. There's a picture I saw on a recent one of his shows of his new TV channel that he just opened, where they're like unearthing something from the ground, and it's like a geoglyph, or yeah, on a stone, but it has like a xenomorph in it, and they showed that on national television. And they don't check that anymore. They just go like, yeah, just put it out there. It doesn't matter. We have like 200 vendors to pay. We have over 500 employees. That's our main priority. It's not the truth. And I
Well,
fear
this is a critique of like Gaia TV. You've got a network, and they've got a bottom line, and they have to sell ad space and do all these things. And you get into a machine where it's like content is what matters. I mean, we have it in YouTube. It's the same thing in YouTube. It's like there's this constant need to be producing something new.
But
And
I
it's
fear
hard.
that I fear that a lot of these people are starting to become more known and part of another machine in the U.S. And it comes to the point where they have to make a decision. Are you gonna keep being relevant and selling and supporting your family? Because if you don't do it like that, you're not gonna support your family. It becomes a matter of like just priorities and decision making. And I think there's like a clear disconnect between just genuinely going after the truth or what's going on, and just putting out content or putting out stuff like Lou just did with this image. But there are many examples. Lou is just one of them.
There was plenty of other news this
Well,
week.
look, just one last
close on this.
one last thought on this, and then we can move on to the rest of it. But it's been a very busy week, and I think to step back from this situation and look at everything else before we get into these other stories. I mean, we're talking about it. We're coming off of a week where Jesse Michaels dropped that Harold Malmgren 4-hour interview, which was crazy. That posthumous interview that answered a lot of questions about what the hell is actually going on from a very top-down, senior level presidential advisor perspective. And then right on the heels of that, we had the Matt Brown weaponized interview with George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, which exceeded all my wildest possible expectations. And it was even more context from within of what is actually going on with the Immaculate Constellation program. And then we've got this hearing with Anna Paulina Luna, and you've got even more from Eric Davis. It is pretty easy for me to imagine that the people who are in control of the secrecy or the technology, in a desperate attempt to try and sabotage it, would try to throw anything they can into the machine to muck it up. And one of the things they might try is plant some bullshit on Lou, knowing what they know about him, that he's probably going to run with it, and let him just, burn the whole UFO community apart. My question to you guys is there anything Lou can do to come back from this? And if so, what?
I would step back for a little while. Just take a little step back, let other people do some work, and stay behind the scenes for a little bit. Don't have to hide, but just like, maybe don't be the point guy for a little while. My opinion.
Yeah. I mean, he already sold his book. The book did really well. I think that after this, he needs to take the back seat for a little while and let Jay Stratton, Hal Puthoff, all the people that are coming out on the Age of Disclosure film have their moment and do what they are here to do, which is tell us what's going on, That's my opinion.
Yeah, we can't put it all in one guy, and we shouldn't.
Yeah.
Eric?
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, it's already been said precisely what I was thinking.
All right, let's talk about where should
What do
we
you think,
take
Clint?
this
What do
next?
you think?
Can he come back from it? I think this is an example. The way I read this situation is This is an example of how they fuck with this community. They being the people in charge of the legacy program, the people who try to maintain the secrecy, who don't want this stuff to come out. The way they fuck with this community is they get involved at the group level, at the street level. They get into these groups. There might even be some of these, intelligence people in the fucking night shift community for all we know. We don't know. We don't know who they are. Pavel could be a CIA asset. Look at this hat. There could be all kinds of technology hidden in there.
That's the Mudhorn, dude. Don't insult the Mudhorn.
So if they were going to try and throw a monkey wrench into it, I also believe that we're in a disclosure moment, like this large moment, all these events, when you zoom back from it 10 years from now and we look back at this period, this is going to be disclosure playing out over a period of probably a decade or more, with a beginning, a middle, and maybe a kind of a gray area at the end, but we will get to some kind of an answer because all this shit's not going to happen for nothing, right? This is building to something. But this does set it back in the public eye. I think people will see this and they'll go, oh, it's a data point. I'll just, one more fake photo. So I don't know. Can he come back from it? Maybe. But I think the movement is bigger than one guy. So at the end of the day, I don't know if
this news story will be pushed a lot, though. The showing up the bad picture is going to get a lot more press than other things that we see that are legitimate.
Of course, the real news is in the British tabloids. That's what I always see. Like the worse, the shittier the tabloid, the more real it is. It's like, because I think they hide that. I think they put the real stories in the shitty papers because they know that will increase the doubt factor, right?
Does the National Enquirer still exist?
The what?
Oh God,
National
Enquirer. I think so. Maybe. I think so.
That's where it is. That's where the truth is.
As long as moms exist, the Enquirer will exist.
Everybody in the chat, real quick, if you haven't already, if you're not already a subscriber, just a quick reminder, take a second, hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything. It only takes 1 second. You just go boop, and you're a subscriber, and you're supporting the channel. And if you want to get into the comments and be a part of this conversation, I would like to know from the audience, what do you guys think? Can Lou Elizondo come back from this? This is like, he's the guy. He is the, like it or not, for better or worse, Lou is one of the faces that would be on the Mount Rushmore of disclosure. So where does this leave you guys in the audience? Let us know in the chat. We'll read some of your comments as we go through the show. When we go on to the next thing, should we stay with I think we should stay with this hearing because the Eric Davis thing happened that same day, that same hour, right? Want to get into the Eric Davis video?
Oh, yeah.
There are various timestamps. Do you have any in mind that you'd like to start with?
Where he says that Roswell is misnamed, that was very interesting to me, man.
Yeah, man.
That was wild.
Do you have a timestamp for that? I have timestamps given to me, but recovered. No,
it's in the Google Docs. Hang on, I pulled all the timestamps and sent them to Xander before the show, but I sent him a doc.
I hadn't had time to watch the UAP hearing. I watched the Hal Puthoff interview instead, which was also really good. But yeah, as a result, I haven't managed to have time to watch this UAP disclosure fund thing.
Clips are great.
So we'll just go through some clips. Let me set this up really quick, just to give people an idea of who Eric Davis is and why Eric is so significant. So Eric Davis, I'm going to read his bio really quick here, is a physicist and researcher who is known for his work related to unidentified aerial phenomena. He has worked for a number of organizations, including the National Institute for Discovery Science, or NIDS. That is an organization that was put together and funded by billionaire Robert Bigelow, who actually has the head of a gray alien on the side of his building at Bigelow Aerospace. Go figure. That's NIDS. The Institute for Advanced Studies at Austin and the Aerospace Corporation, and he has contributed to numerous scientific publications. He received his undergraduate degree in physics from the University of California, San Diego, and his PhD in astrophysics from the University of Arizona. He has held various research positions throughout his career, including at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory and the Earth Tech International Institute for Advanced Studies. He has been involved in the UFO and UAP research since the 1990s, and has authored a number of papers on the subject. He has stated in interviews that he personally witnessed and studied UAP phenomena and believes that they are likely of extraterrestrial origin. So this guy is he is responsible for what is called the Wilson memo. The memo that was Admiral Wilson. What's his first name?
Thomas.
Thomas Wilson. That kind of blew open the secrecy behind the program. And this was a famous memo where at the time, Admiral was trying to get access to the program. He was in a meeting with Eric Davis. Eric Davis took notes on this, and the people that the Admiral was meeting with are part of this program. And long story short, they told him he just didn't have the need to know. He was not, they weren't going to tell. They told him, they confirmed that there was a program and it had to do with non-human intelligence, but an admiral didn't have a need to know, and he was pissed. This memo later leaked. Eric Davis became famous as a whistleblower. He came out and confirmed it, and this kicks off this whole story. So in this next bit, Eric Davis is testifying in this hearing, and he's talking about the inside of the program, what it looked like when he was working on it from within, and the progress as he understood it that they had made up till the time he left. And so we've got some clips here of this, and I want to start with, let's just go to clip one. There is a there. It starts at 6 minutes and 21 seconds. And he's basically explaining here why this is a serious subject and you should take what he has to say seriously.
The audio should be better in this video. I think the person that uploaded it enhanced the audio or something.
Enhance.
Assessment. And so I have been exposed to so much in the classified realm that I can tell you definitively that there is a there. The human race, basically the world's biggest governments, like the United States, our adversary China and Russia, at least as far as I know, have had the occasion to recover craft that have either landed or crashed or both in their territory or even outside of their territories, and have taken those back to the most sensitive of their programs that they've ever had. These programs are even more sensitive and more well hidden than Manhattan Project was, or the modern nuclear weapons industry and the U.S. military and the Department of Energy programs to maintain and upgrade and modernize our nuclear weapons arsenal. And so this is one of the most well hidden programs. It is hidden from congressional oversight and always has been. And it was hidden by the action of President Eisenhower, who instituted presidential emergency action directives during his administration. These directives are not shared with Congress. They are classified. And when the Freedom of Information Act was instituted in the 70s, those are not subjected to the Freedom of Information Act request. These directives provide cover for actions that are associated with the retrieval of these vehicles and the scientific and engineering study of them. And that takes place within the industry. What happens is the Department of Defense offices, CIA offices, they create shell companies. They give a sole source contract to the shell company who passes the money to a selected group of defense industry firms. And those firms will take that contract money and turn them around and use that as internal funding. It's called internal research and development funds, which they give to their own people inside their company, their own employees, to do the reverse engineering and analysis and study of these recovered vehicles. And so this avoids all congressional oversight. It avoids the gang of eight. And it's one of the most clever techniques used to hide it.
I think that was gang of eight, not gain of aid.
One 4-star general and one 3-star admiral were able to locate these programs. And that's about as much as I can say. They located the programs and they uncovered them. One got a lot of resistance and hostile reception and was
Wilson.
Told that he found who he was looking for. They were who they were suspected of being. Yes, they were a UFO, UAP, crash retrieval, and reverse engineering program. The other one had a lot more political power here because of his stature as a 4-star general. And he was able to get into the program and use his authority and his access. I think they call that a super user. The super user has access to all.
That's Tim Gallaudet, who he turned to.
So he had his capability
to his right.
Into that whole thing. I was fortunate to meet Dave Dresch at the behest of Jay Stratton. Dave was a NRO liaison officer to the UAP
I think we could stop it there for this first clip.
I love him.
Just balls to the wall information about how it all works. What do you guys think?
I just have a question straight away. And Pavel will definitely know the answer to this because he knows everything. What? So Eric Davis says he knows with 100% confidence, right? He wasn't, as far as I'm aware, directly in the crash retrieval or reverse engineering programs, no. So maybe he mentioned it there, I don't know. Do you know the exact mechanism by which he found out that these programs actually exist?
Yep, I do. Okay, so he's part of a core group that George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell are more associated with, which is Jim Lakatsky, Colm Kelleher, Jay Stratton, and all of those guys. And Lakatsky wrote in his book that he entered a craft. So I gather, based on that, that's where Eric Davis gets some of his information. And Lakatsky is one of the hostile witnesses. He has already stated publicly that he wouldn't testify unless there are better protections for people. And that's where the main problem is. That's why Kirk McConnell was there on that hearing too. And that's why Chris Mellon was there too, to talk about this issue. And that's why Eric Davis is so certain about it, because Lakatsky was part of this. That's what he alluded to in his book. So, yeah.
I also love the fact that, like, Eric Davis eating a salad is now a meme.
My God, I was going to say the same thing. That huge salad meme. Oh my
Literally
God,
half an hour of just Eric Davis like munching on lettuce. It was so funny.
it's the best thing we've gotten in a week.
He explains pretty quickly how the system works, and it's kind of crazy. Like the CIA creates a show company. The show company gets funding, gives that money over to private industry, and then they just take that and turn it into internal research funds, and they just do everything in-house. And this was all put in motion by Eisenhower. And since then, subsequently, no one has had oversight of this. So this program's been running away on its own since the Eisenhower administration, with no one checking in on it and no one keeping tabs on it. So there could be a dozen different programs, all at different levels of progress, unbeknownst to one another. And that's just in our country. Who knows what's going on outside the borders of the U.S.? I don't know. What do you guys think? This is pretty startling stuff, right?
Yep. And I think that's something that a lot of people overlooked about this is the fact that now scientists like Eric Davis and also Dr. Ana Brady Estevez are coming forward talking about this stuff. And there seems to be like a theme here that a lot of these scientists and people that are close to this are also experiencing stuff. And I think that not a lot of people talk about that. And it gives me three-body problem vibes a lot. That you remember
explain what you mean.
Because in that series on Netflix, I didn't read the book, but the phenomenon targets people who are like in the know of scientific knowledge and even intel knowledge. And this seems to be happening in real life too. And that's something that not a lot of people are talking about. And I think it's one of the most important aspects of what we just saw yesterday, you know? That's why I got so mad at what happened with Lou, though, because people stopped paying attention to this aspect of it, which is the most important to me.
Do you think scientists are being contacted more, or maybe just people in general are interacting with the phenomenon more?
I think it's in general, but it's also happening to a lot of scientists. And that is
Do you guys
really
have
interesting.
Just personally, do any of you guys have like a pet theory or hypothesis that you like as to why that might happen, or why that might be happening, or how that could be happening?
With people or with scientists specifically?
Well, with people in general, like Diana Pasulka has talked about the people being contacted, this phenomenon that we've heard rumors about for a while, whispers of it, that there are people who are getting inside information telepathically in some cases, given to them. People who, like Harold Malmgren in the Jesse Michaels interview, talked about he handled some material from a retrieved a crash retrieval. And when he handled the material, he talked about having a telepathic, enhanced communication with this thing. Somehow it tapped into him. Jake Barber, same thing. So, Pavel, to tease this out a little bit, like what could be going on here? You think about this a lot. Do you have any thoughts? To anybody here?
Yeah, I have a running theory though. If this phenomenon is not negative, they might be contacting in the bell curve, the ones at the very top of the bell curve, to try and move civilization forward or warn them about something. I don't know what it is, if that is indeed happening, but it's just a theory. I'm not saying it's happening. Just you asked and I responded.
Okay.
Which one of you? We're in a group chat, the 5 of us here. Which one of you sent the Ryan Bledsoe clip yesterday?
That was me.
Okay, you sent a clip where he was talking about how kind of easy it is to make contact if you want to. Basically, go outside, look at the sky, have honest intentions, and basically ask whatever's out there to show itself. And you'd be surprised how often that happens. And that is exactly what happened with me. So I can say that for me, it was like, I mean, I've been trying to do it my whole life, but one time it just worked. All of a sudden it just worked and something appeared in front of me and materialized and I heard the voice and the whole thing. And why is it happening more now? Maybe it's just time that we do evolve a little bit. I don't know. But for me, it happened just like that. It was just...
That's what happened with the orbs. That I saw some orbs. I had video of it. We showed it on the show.
Yep.
I saw 3 or 4 orbs that night. And I did the exact same thing. I even said it in the video. I was like, I walked outside. I said, let me see what there is. If there's something to show me, I'd like to see it. I just want to understand.
Did you hear anything? Did you get any did you hear anything?
I just looked up.
Yeah.
I just looked up, like I was looking down. I was walking my dog. And I was just looking, when you walk your dog, you're like looking down at the ground. You make sure he's not eating something that he found on the whatever, or just looking down. And then I kind of just lifted up my head. When I lifted up my head, I looked at the horizon and I saw what looked like a star, but there's no star that big. It was like a big orange ball. It looked like a basketball glowing, but from far away. And I was like, that's weird. And then I saw another one, and then I saw another one, and I got my phone out and I just sat there on the sidewalk, or stood there, and I recorded video of it for about, 3 minutes. And they just drifted up into the sky. They were kind of floating in different directions. One was coming this way, the other one went that way, and then they just went off into the distance. They got dim and they disappeared, and that was it.
It's beautiful.
Only happened one time.
Yep.
What do you think, Eric?
Yeah. To start with the easy part, I'm very confident that if someone just happens to see something whiz by, they just got lucky. They were at the right time, the right place at the right time. When it comes to people who have an interaction with it, or at least seeing it very closely, I think all of those are intentional. And I don't say that the person was chosen, but they're definitely intentional. I have a client I work with. He's one of my UAP clients, and we were recently talking about patterns of who would be visited, and there are some interesting trends. One study hinted that it's a rare blood type. I believe that people are visited by the phenomenon when they gain an interest in it. I think that's why I was initially visited by UAP. I was about 3 years into researching UAPs, and this thing could have found me anytime prior to that. This was just a couple of years ago. There's a very interesting trend, and we don't have much data. So this person that I'm working with, I casually asked, what is your personality type? And this person's a UAP experiencer. And as he was thinking about it, I wrote something down. And he said, oh, yeah, I took one of those personality tests. What was it? Oh, I'm INFJ. And I said, look what I wrote down. And it was INFJ. I'm INFJ. Matt Roberts is INFJ. The client is INFJ. My girlfriend, who's had 2 experiences, is INFJ. On top of that, Matt Roberts met with a group of, I think, 19 people, all experiencers. 70% of the group of 19 was INFJ. INFJ in the population is 1.3%. And in our sample, though granted it's a small one, we're at almost 90%. Right?
What is
so it is a small
INFJ?
sample,
Sorry.
but to go from 1.3% up to 90 means something. And somebody mentioned earlier, of course, people work in intel, observation, nuclear. So if anybody works in the nuclear field, their chances are much higher of being visited. So again, I think something whizzes by, I saw something, right place, right time. But when it's a close interaction, I have no doubt it's an intentional visit. And if I was to guess what the major factor is in all this is the person's psychological makeup, who they are.
Can you? What is the
What is
INFJ?
INFJ? Sorry, yeah, I don't know what that is.
does that mean?
INFJ is characterized as being an empathetic servant. So it's no coincidence that my girlfriend and I were both INFJ and we're both therapists. Right. So that's an example of INFJ, quite empathetic and likes to think.
Okay.
Wow.
They talked about Lou has mentioned, it was mentioned in his book Imminent. This is probably not the best time to bring this up, but Lou talked about people with certain genetic traits. So there were certain genetic lineages that seem to have higher incidences contact. They were specifically talking about like certain people with Native American ancestry. There were certain groups that they had identified that had some higher ability for telepathy. And
Right.
then it was Gary Nolan who talked about the caudate putamen. They had identified the structure in the brain that had what seemed to be more developed in certain people who had telepathic ability, and they thought there was a correlation there. Or I think he was suggesting there might be a correlation. I don't want to put words in his mouth.
I think he mentioned as well that it would be people that have had that would call themselves experiencers that have seem to have enlarged caudate putamen or something. Specifically abductees, I think he said.
So it makes you wonder, like, is it something like a species at the species level? There are people who are at the sort of bleeding edge of maybe developing into something, whatever the next level of humanity is going to be. And these people have rudimentary abilities to pick up on some of this. And maybe we pop up on their radar somehow and they can see, I don't know, they can detect those people and they know how to contact them, or are they trying to more deliberately steer the conversation in one direction or another? I think that's the real question at the heart of this thing.
Eric?
Yep, just to add something, you mentioned Native Americans. I know someone who is very well educated in UAPs. You would recognize the name. He says Native Americans and people of Celtic descent. It's also widely agreed for people who are looking at the data of very close experiences or abductions. There's a very good chance that your mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, and down the line have also had experiences, but not so much on the father's side.
There is a killer clip from an episode of The X-Files that I cannot remember which episode it was, but I just posted it the other day. I think I posted it on my Instagram. And they were talking about... No, I was sending it back and forth with someone, and we were talking about this clip. And the show is so fucking good. I cannot stress it enough to people who have never watched The X-Files. And if you haven't seen it in 30 years, you got to go back and watch it again, because we are in The X-Files right now. But they're talking about a German scientist who was brought to the United States as part of Operation Paperclip. This guy who worked on genetics for the Nazis. And he was brought in to help with the UFO reverse engineering effort in the States. And this... part of what they did was, now this is in the story, the lore of the X-Files series, so I'm not saying this is real, I'm saying this is a show, but it rhymes a lot with some of the things that we're talking about. And in the show, they used smallpox vaccinations as a way to collect a genetic database on everyone. And so they took, when they were getting, in the show, they said when they were giving people smallpox inoculations, they were actually taking a genetic sample. And they compiled a database, and this database was used to pull samples from, to test their theories about different, alien species and what we could be, how they could be related to us. But it makes you wonder. It just made me wonder when you were saying that Celtic background and Native American backgrounds. I think I might know who you're talking about, who you're referring to. But what if, what is that DNA testing company? What was it called? 23andMe.
23andMe.
All this shit. What if in the very, very background, they're mining this data to see, like, are there biological traits for telepaths that we can identify so we can figure out who these people are? Or hybrids. Are they trying to track hybrid? I showed a clip of David Jacobs talking about hybrids yesterday. What are the hybrids all about? What are they doing? Not to speculate too far out into the
this
ether
kind
here,
of
but-
ties into what Dr. Puthoff talked about yesterday, because he talks about this bell curve. I think that it's possible that humanity right now is reaching a level where, if you guys read John Keel's The Eight Tower book, where he talks about the super spectrum concept, I think that we're reaching a level where we're getting to, I don't know if it's remembering or evolving to a certain point where this super spectrum is finally getting to be more available to us, to our perception. Because it's not just eyesight.
Yes.
Perception is all of the senses. And
Explain
what we
super spectrum to people.
Yeah, the super spectrum basically is a field where everything exists. And John Keel claims and says in his book that this super spectrum has all of the supernatural stuff that people have been reporting for millennia. This includes UFOs, and it also includes other stuff. For example, like what happens at Skinwalker Ranch. And I think that what Dr. Nolan is investigating right now with the caudate putamen, that part of the brain, I believe, the reason he found tissue in there is because that's the part of the brain that is starting to evolve in
to
humans.
touch that higher level of reality. You're talking
Yeah.
about a meta reality that encompasses all other layers of reality down to the denser levels where we are here, but it continues outwards.
The actual reality, I would call it.
Actual reality from the top down. This is really interesting. Do you think I have a Robert Bigelow thing that I watched yesterday, and I want to talk to you guys about it, but I haven't shown the clip, and it's kind of weird to set it up. But he talks about this. He talks about this because he funded NIDS, and he had another study that he did on afterlife studies, and Bigelow's team was basically able to, like, I don't know how they did this, but they did. He says internally his team he's got this fascination with the afterlife, and they were able to confirm some things by studying many people who have had near-death experiences, or NDEs, that the NDE experience and the after-death experience overlap dramatically with the UFO and UAP experience. Yeah. And his suspicion is that they are not different things. They are the same thing, i.e. the super spectrum that you're talking about. And he goes a step further. And this is the thing I want to just throw at you guys. He's talking to Jeffrey Mishlove on New Thinking Aloud. I'll send you the link to this. It's the greatest interview. It's so good. He says, remember when Bob Lazar talked about containers? And he was like, humans are containers, according to this paperwork that he read when he went into the briefing. He said that they refer to us as containers, the others, whoever they are, the beings. Bigelow talks about this, and he goes, imagine that in the larger reality, we're talking really here about continuity of consciousness. So if consciousness survives death and it continues on, then that next reality layer is like a thermal layer in the ocean. You just kind of pass through it. And he says, based on his research, they've identified 7. There are 7 layers that consciousness can move through. And at the top layer, it's so far removed from what the experience of being a human that it's a completely different reality. It wouldn't even make sense. But there are layers to this. And as you pass through each layer, there are it's just as real as this reality, but it's real in a different way. There's a different type of realness to it, but you're going up. So he goes on to explain kind of what he thought. One thing he thinks might be happening is that these beings, the non-human intelligence, exist at this next layer up or above that, somewhere above us. They can see down into our layer. We can't see up into their layer. And they're able to, through their technology, come down into our layer briefly for periods of time, visit, do things, pick us up, take us to their layer, bring us back. And they can traverse it, but they can't stay here. And he was saying that the body, in that sense, in that world, if you take that hypothesis and you kind of extrapolate from that, the body is just a container. Consciousness is the real being. That's the real you. You're a node of consciousness that floats through these different layers, and you have a lifetime of experience, and then you move on to the next one when your container expires. Okay, so that's the milieu. Then this is where he goes next. He says, now imagine you create an artificial intelligence. An artificial intelligence that's perfect in every way. It's convinced that it's a self-aware. It has feelings. It has hate and love and anger and all these things. But when it dies, it doesn't have a soul. It just disappears. It exists because it's created into existence, but there's no continuity of consciousness to this being. What if you let that run for 10,000 years or 1,000,000 years? At some point, you have a race of things that don't have the same thing we do, the ability to go through these different layers. You don't have this consciousness core at the node, at the center of it all. So they would be a separate class of life form, different than everything else. And they might want to study us to figure out what we have that they don't have. And he was basically suggesting that some of these visitors may be beings that are trying to figure out what a soul is. And that's why we talk about that term in such weird language when we refer to it in the UFO community. It's like this whole soul conversation. What is this consciousness aspect to it? And he just went into this really great explanation. I'll send you guys the link. But he was basically saying that they can see down into our layer. They can communicate with us telepathically. But when it comes through to us on this layer, it's distorted because we're receiving the information at a denser level. And I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, but I just thought it was fascinating, and I don't know. I wanted to throw that out there. It's a wild hypothesis.
You explained it great. And that is the best Bigelow interview by far.
You know which one it is?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Oh,
it's amazing.
Should we go on to
that dude understands things as probably nobody else can because he's been all over the place and his hands in everything. So, yeah.
Yep.
Why don't we go on to the next clip? I feel like I ate up so much time. Sorry, guys. Let's go on to the.
Hey, it's your show, by the way.
I know, but you guys are the fun part of it. Clip 3 is recovered craft contained materials engineered in ways we cannot replicate. It's at 13 minutes in, and it's like a 2.5 minute clip. And he's basically saying in this clip, explaining how we know what we're looking at is alien.
And Avi, I support 1,000% because we need him to do what he needs to do. UAPX is another group from the University of Albany in Albany, New York. They're doing that as well. And there are other groups out there building up their own sensor suites, trying to scan the sky full-time, 24/7 to look for something that's high, and definitely not weather, definitely not an aircraft, definitely not a kid's blue flight cockpit.
We've had a discussion at length in certain settings, in the formal official setting, where we talk about exotic material. I think it might be very helpful to the degree you can. Can you please explain what makes exotic material that has been recovered from the U.S. government exotic? What makes it different from atomically and chemically?
It's actually a very simple answer. It's the way it's fabricated. It's the way it's fabricated. That's what makes it exotic. It's not a new element that's never been discovered and placed on the periodic table of elements. No. The materials are in the periodic tables. They're either radioactive isotopes that we already know of, or they're any of the other non-radioactive, non-actinide elements on the table. It's just the combination of the materials is unusual. It could be that you could say that that's exotic, but it's the composition. It's how you built the craft, the materials that form the craft and everything inside the craft. It's quite exotic because One of the company's leadership was a young material scientist when he graduated with his doctorate in material science from one of the universities in Illinois back in 1970. And he was hired by Ben Rich to work with him and a team at Skunkworks. That was the Advanced Projects Agent Development.
Ben Rich is the name he said.
Aircraft, I think, called it back in those days. So, so basically, this is what he was telling me. He's an advanced material scientist, and he said, well, we could use the best diagnostic equipment we had back in those days, which was 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And we could see the elements through mass spectroscopy that compose these structures. But when we look at how they're composed and structured, it's like nothing we've been able to fabricate on Earth. We've never been able to reproduce it on Earth. And we have no extrapolated engineering or physics technology to tell us or inform us on how we can possibly learn how to fabricate this on. So they understood that it's the combination of the elements was very unusual. It's counterintuitive, but it's the way the materials are fabricated. That's what makes it on things up.
Damn.
Hal Puthoff talked about this with Joe Rogan. And the sample, it's quite a famous sample, I think, because it's gone through a few hands, including Blink-182's hands. But yeah, he talked about this piece with like 16, 17 layers, and they tried to get a company to basically recreate this sample, and they got like 1 layer in, 2 layers in, and it had already cost them over $1 million, so they stopped doing it. But this sample that's like not a small sample, really, it's quite big for a sample. But yeah, it was like 16 layers of just like bismuth and titanium, and they didn't know why. Neither the bismuth or the titanium were strange in any way. They were very terrestrial, like you could find them if you mined them. But it was like, yeah, like actually putting them together in these structures as thin as a human hair, how Puthoff put it, would just, A, we don't know why anyone would do it, and B, we actually don't really know how to do it for anything less than like $20 million.
Remember a few years ago, well, it's actually not a few, it was probably like 15 years ago, they were like, what was it? They were saying graphene,
Yeah.
Graphene is the super material. They're going to make a space elevator out of graphene. A single piece of graphene, an atom thick, can hold an elephant on the tip of a pencil. It's that strong. And they were like, it's going to revolutionize everything. And then we never heard about it, graphene again. And as far as I know, nothing's being made with it. It sounds like that.
As far as you know.
As far as I know. But as far as Erik knows, this is the guy, he's saying he got this directly from the guy who worked at the head of the project at Skunkworks, up until the 90s at least, was saying they didn't know what they were looking at. Or they knew what they were looking at, but they didn't know what to do with it.
And they also, I have heard Tom DeLonge talking about creating alloys in zero gravity from people at NASA. And I wonder if this may be one of those materials that can be created in such manner at zero gravity. But yeah, that was really interesting. And Puthoff did mention it too. The whole story with Art Bell and Linda Moulton Howe and how they got it all studied. That's legendary by this point in ufology.
I wonder how much of this technology is going to be like what they're talking about is like at the very least, what, like nanoscale engineering, or like what's the next layer below nanoscale? Picoscale.
I guess they're talking about atomic engineering, where you're literally lining up atom next to an atom, and you have the ability to do that, like with a reasonable means. We can, I think, in principle, do that, but we have A, no reason to do it, and B, not enough money in the world
to scale it.
To scale it, yeah. Because there's in theory, like I can't remember where I saw this, but we're past the point now in science where science only understood how to take this ingredient that we found in the ground over here and we mix it with this ingredient that we found in the ground over here, and we make this ingredient from the two of those, now we understand on a fundamental level how to actually build that ingredient from scratch using energy, like in its purest form. We know how to do that, but the actual idea of doing it requires power levels that are just like so astronomically beyond. I think it was a video related to the LHC, now I'm thinking about it, because the LHC draws vast amounts of power, and they're in the they're just about to approve, or have just approved, the next version of the LHC, which is going to be right next to the LHC and won't be finished for like 30 years. But even that won't be close to generating enough, like being able to use the power in a way to effectively turn energy into an atom. But
You're talking about the
how
hadron
to do it.
The Hadron Collider is what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the LHC is just it operates at its power level currently, and there's been plans to even build a particle accelerator literally just around the moon, because in theory it should be easier to actually have it there because it's in like a vacuum of space and stuff. But yeah, basically, we're trying to like use particle accelerators in a way they're really like not designed to be used at this point. We're doing things with them that are just completely incomprehensible, to the point where if we really want to do anything related to this sort of technology, like atoms layered on top of atoms, we're talking about particle accelerators that are like that, like around Jupiter. Like they need to be absolutely massive to be able to like utilize energy in that way.
So it'd be like going back in time and finding like a really good, the best watchmaker in the world, and saying, can you duplicate this microprocessor?
Yeah.
Do you think you could do this?
It's not even the same league. Yeah.
Like, you could give it to Leonardo da Vinci and he would look at it and he wouldn't know what the fuck to do with it. He would just be like, I'm the smartest guy in the world. I have no clue. Yeah, that's kind of where we are.
The science makes sense to us. It's just we don't know. Like, even I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Stephen Hawking that touched on this, but time travel backwards is technically possible. It is technically possible, but it requires a form of energy we don't understand. That's all it is. And it's kind of similar with this sort of stuff. It's just beyond. It's like trying to use a simple wooden furnace to power a city. It's like your furnace is the problem. It's not the amount of stuff you're putting in the furnace. It's the furnace that's the problem. You're doing it the wrong way.
I think one thing that's really fascinating about this little tidbit from Davis, this whole 30-minute sort of presentation, is that he lays out a lot of really great detail about what he knows as an insider, and it fills in a lot of gaps. But the other gaps that remain are pretty big gaps. Like, we've got reports of Bob Lazar saying they gained access to the inside of the craft. They know what the reactor looks like. He was like, it's the size of a basketball. It looks like an espresso machine. It can produce enough power to destroy the world. It's like unbelievable. They exploded. He says they exploded one when they tried to cut into a functioning reactor, which actually Eric Davis talks about. Not that exact event, but he touches on it in a second. So there are different accounts historically of how far we've gotten with the program, how many craft we've recovered. I think was it Jim Lukatsky who said he had personally also been inside a craft. They'd gained access. They managed to cut into one.
Breached the hull. Yep.
They breached the hull. And they say, and as far as I know, have you guys heard anything different other than, like, my understanding is that every time someone gets into one of these craft, if they've seen the inside, it looks very plain. It's very boring. They don't even know like where to start because it's all one piece.
No control surfaces, nothing, no navigation equipment, just like weird chairs and nothing else.
Injection molded out of plastic almost. Yep. But yeah.
Think about if you got into like a 2025 model Volkswagen and you didn't have the ignition key, all you'd see were like these flat surfaces, like where, like my car's not that new. Like, so I would get in my car and I see the speedometer, I see the mileage gauge.
It's got 900,000 miles on
it. Whereas these new ones, it's literally you get inside and it's just like one big, without the key, it's just one big wall of grey, isn't it? Until you put the key in, it all lights up. And we don't have that key. I think is essentially the same thing. Like, we enter these craft and we don't know what the hell we're looking at, but maybe they've not found how to switch this on, and it all lights up and everything like that.
They're trying to turn on a cave. Yeah.
And maybe the key, it really is the brain that powers it.
The Schwartz is in you.
One of the theories is that it works through consciousness. That's what is being said in some circles. So maybe the key is that. And I know that this rubs a lot of the nuts and bolts people the wrong way, but it's a conversation that is already happening. I mean, Skywatcher is trying to do that, whether you believe that or not. Stephen Greer has been doing it for a while. So maybe that's the answer, not necessarily trying to find a physical key, you know?
Well, I one of my favorite rumors and bits of UFO lore is this thread about telepaths. And some people are born just badass telepaths, and they have to find these guys. And they find them, and then they recruit them into these programs. And so you have like psionic assets, like the people working with Skywatcher to make contact with these ships, all the way up to people who claim to have been brought in and trained how to fly these craft, which is a really interesting one. And there's a great story from Mark McCandlish, who describes the control surfaces that he had to draw the schematics for inside one of these really shitty early shitbox UAP or ARV vehicles, the alien reproduction vehicles. He said it looked like it had been around by the time that got, he saw it, or whoever saw it that relayed this to him, that it was all dinged up and stuff. But he talked about how it was built inside to make this thing work. And it was really clunky because it was all designed by us, but it was totally different. And then some of the more advanced craft, they're just like this blank slate inside it. There's nothing inside, nothing to it. And maybe there's something about that rumor that they need. What if it's only 1% of 1% of the population has what it takes to actually fly one of these things?
We got Chris Ramsey on the chat.
Chris Ramsey, because he can fly one. If anybody can do it, Chris can do it. Is he in the chat?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris.
The mechanism was like, in the original ARV, was like a ball, wasn't it? Where they put their hands on it and they like use it. It's kind of, I imagine in the meetings when they were like, so we've got cars and we know how to like fly those and not fly those. We know that the steering wheel works for cars. If these ARVs need to go like up and down as well as left and right, let's just turn that steering wheel into a sphere. And they maybe that's why they've come up with the sphere for it. I imagine that's probably not how they're doing it now, but I remember specifically inside the ARV was a sphere that you'd put your hands on and move it around like that.
Can you think for 1 second how fucking fun that would be?
Oh my god!
like Flight of the Navigator, full on Flight of the Navigator mode.
I'm
looking at that clip right now. Dan,
Compliance.
that's fucked up.
Really?
That's fucked up. You know that's Paul Rubens?
Yeah, I do.
Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah, of course.
He's
Compliance.
the voice, the Trimaxian drone ship. Cole Watkins.
Hell yeah,
we're
dude.
talking about.
The guy who did the effects for that movie is like a friend of a friend here. So I've been to a party, and in his backyard, he has the actual craft in his backyard.
No way.
Yeah.
How does it look?
Not bad. I mean, it's been in the LA sun for 40 years, but it's awesome. It's cool to see it in person. Anyway, yeah.
Flight of the Navigator, shape-shifting craft, 1986, Disney, first CGI in a movie, as far as I know. They show the craft changing shape. They show the boy inside talking to the craft. The craft just does shit. I mean, I'm telling you, there's some kind of slow-mo disclosure that was happening back in the 80s. They were really trying to drip feed some of this stuff to us.
People should not overlook that movie. It should be in the conversation with the Close Encounters, actually. And I know it seems silly, but there's some stuff in there for sure.
Chris Mellon, in the beginning of the book, Imminent, Chris Mellon says specifically that the CIA hired Disney. They contracted Disney to help them spread the or debunk UFOs. They wanted a PR campaign to convince people, that there was no there, and they've used Disney for that in the past. It's not outside of the realm of possibility that they would use them for other things, and maybe to mix in some.
Whoa!
And Chris Ramsey just sent that to me on Discord. So if you want a job, Chris, you can.
Wait, what is this?
Googler. So I just said that they were like the original ARVs. They would use this sphere to navigate the ARVs because they didn't have the technology effectively to interface with it with consciousness as is the prevailing theory right now. So they would use this sphere instead to orient the craft. And now that I see the photo, the headset that they've got on would also look in 360 around the craft via
McCandless
video.
said that.
Yes, yeah. And all of the craft had these cameras on the outside in these little bubbles, and you can see that on the original ARV drawings, they had these little camera bubbles, and basically what that headset was the first version of the augmented reality, where it would just basically look through all of those cameras in sync with each other, so you could look basically through the skin of the craft as you're directing it with this orb navigation thingamajiggy.
Did Chris make this picture with AI or something?
No, I think
where's this picture from?
This is from it's archive.org, but it is astronaut Charles Conrad Jr., commander of the first manned Skylab mission. Checks out the first human vestibular function. I'll find the information, and when I find it, I will
Holy shit!
share it. But yeah, that's not AI. That's not AI.
Here's the craft that McCandless drew is on my screen here. If you want to share this real quick, this is what he was saying. So my understanding, and I haven't watched this interview in a while, but Mark McCandless is an aerospace illustrator who did schematic drawings of military craft that were being developed by private contractors for, publications in magazines and internal stuff. And he would basically do these. His talent, this is, pre-AI. He could get in there and take technical blueprints for a craft or and some information, and then create a 2-scale cutaway drawing of this stuff. And he was basically saying here that what they had figured out, this is one of the early Model T versions of what we built when we figured out kind of how UFOs work. And you can see in the bottom, there's oxygen tanks in here. They've got this pod up top where the pilot's chairs sit around this cylinder. As I remember, he said that this could separate from the craft. The craft could blow apart, and this pod would eject out, and somehow the pilots could that was to protect them somehow.
I remember them saying that these
the
initial
camera bubbles
models were sort of made from parts of existing things as well. So none of this stuff was made, or very little of this stuff was made to spec. So the door you can see would looks like a normal airlock door that you'd find on a submarine, for example.
right here. Yeah.
Yeah, so all the technology, which is why it'd probably look and feel so clunky when you're driving it, because it's just not it's not exactly made to spec, is it?
Also
caption-
interesting.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that it's interesting they call the ARV the Advanced Research Vehicle on that.
Well, so this is when Stephen Greer talks about these craft that they've had since the 60s. He's like, they figured this shit out back in the 60s. One of the things I do love about Stephen Greer is how he just throws firebombs on these guys. He's like, they fucking knew. They knew all the way back.
Don't you fucking lie to me.
I have my problems with Greer, but I like the fire that he brings.
Why?
He's awesome in that way. But he's like, yeah, they figured this all out. The caption under this photo or under this drawing says, the impressive Advanced Research Vehicle, ARV, hovercraft, diagrammed by aerospace illustrator Mark McCandless, may he rest in peace, which he calls the Flux Liner, is powered by pulsed electrokinetics as the distributor cap rotates and fires 3 equidistant capacitor banks at a time. An online documentary called Zero Point, the story of Mark McCandlish and the Flux liner, contains extensive details about the craft and Mark's experience with the eyewitnesses, which included a congressman. And not only does that documentary is awesome, and he he says that not only did they have one of these, they had like 4 of them. He's like, these things were beat to shit. They were like scratched up, and they had dings on them, and they just look like Xander's car, 900,000 miles. But he was like, they could take this.
Needs a new clutch.
You could take, Stephen Greer says, you could take this thing and you could be at Mars in like 10 minutes. Like, no bullshit. You could take off from Area 51 and land on the surface of Mars in less than an hour. And that was with technology they had back in the 60s. So when Eric Davis says stuff like that, we don't even know how to make the material that makes these things up, I wonder how much of the larger story that really is, because obviously we figured out a lot. There's too many other whistleblowers who are saying we're way ahead.
David Grush has hinted a few times, being like, you would not believe what we have now. You wouldn't believe what we have now.
That's the question. So the question then is like, we still have 2 more clips I want to go to from Eric Davis, but it's like, if Eisenhower put this program into action during his administration and then set it in perpetual motion with some kind of fucked up executive order that can never be countermanded, can never be changed. And even today, now no one in the government has access to the program. Apparently, it takes like a 4-star general with political connections to even get a peek inside this thing. This thing is completely run away. We don't know what we have. We probably have no idea. Like, even within the larger government apparatus, they probably have no idea what we actually have. How can the president and the executive branch be the custodians of this program, as Malmgren suggested and Matt Brown suggested, if nobody up to and including 3-star admirals and 4-star generals even know what the fuck we have in our arsenal? How can the chief executive make a command decision based on this?
That's because it's sequestered by the aerospace companies, and that's what the legislation was supposed to be aimed at. But the whole thing about eminent domain and all that mess, that's what messed it up. But I think that, I don't know if we will be able to get that eminent domain, because I don't trust eminent domain either. I don't want the government to have full control of this. This has to go to the people, not to the government or aerospace companies.
Well, don't they already have, technically they already have eminent domain, don't they?
The
that's the
companies
argument.
do.
Right.
The companies do. The government gave all of this stuff to the companies and told them, okay, this is yours to handle. We'll just take some from you to build some of so we can do business. But yeah, the government that doesn't know about this, they want eminent domain. And I don't think that's a good idea either.
I think you have to have it. Eminent domain means what eminent domain means for people who are just like new to this conversation. The way that bill is written, if you go back and read the Schumer amendment, it basically says that we can. It clearly outlines the problem. It's like there are private companies that are doing magic level sorcery shit with technology that is more powerful than anything up to and including our complete nuclear arsenal. And we have no oversight. We have no idea what they've got. We don't know if they've got a warp drive on a bench in a basement somewhere out at S4. We don't know. And anyone who makes decisions, that's been elected to be in a position of power to make decisions that govern our society, none of these people have access to any of this. And as far as we can tell, people in our military don't know. And most presidents don't know anymore, I guess, at one time. So this is completely running without any oversight in a totally black world. That's what Stephen Greer's been saying. And the eminent domain clause in that bill was saying, we're going to give the power to the federal government to go into any facility, anywhere, walk in the door with 40 federal agents in fucking SWAT team gear if necessary, and they're going to walk through those fucking glass doors, and they're going to go in that elevator, and you're going to let them go down to the fucking whatever, sub-basement level 12, and they get to see the fucking deal. What's on the bench? Where's the guy? Where are these people working? And that was going to be the start of the conversation about, like, it's about assessing what we even have so that we can have a dialogue about, okay, who gets to know what, how much of this should actually be classified. I'm afraid that at this point, the situation has gone so far out of control that the idea of any government whatsoever is kind of obsolete. It's a notion that the rest of us have to deal with and live with. There is a government. We have to answer to it. We have to deal with it. But the people in the program, as far as they're concerned, they can have a breakaway civilization, like Richard Dolan says.
Or
It's
Matthew
just
Brown says a parallel reality.
a parallel reality. He says that we've been left out. We live in a fake reality of we're probably a century behind at least where we should be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you've got to have eminent domain.
You
have
know
to be
who
able to-
already has eminent domain? President Trump.
I think there should be a clause.
If he walked up to the gates of Area 51 and was like, I'm going to march through there, nobody's going to shoot him. It says on the sign that they've got like deadly authorization or whatever. Nobody's going to shoot that guy. Imagine if they did.
or Elon.
Yeah,
I think Elon could walk in there.
There are some people that have eminent domain already, and that's a serious statement. I really do
know
think
what?
that there are people that have so much power, they just they can't be touched. If they walk up to these facilities and they really do want to go inside, nobody is going to stop them. Nobody.
I don't think they would let him in.
Do you think they're going to arrest him?
It depends on how many Marines he shows up with. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I don't think it'd take as many people as you think.
you know, I think you show up with enough guys with guns. And you're like, look, we can do this right now. We can have a fucked up situation. We can turn this into the Wild Bunch here and have a bunch of people get killed. Or you can let Donald Trump through those doors and I can see the fucking shit.
And by the way, the news is already here watching everything.
You know,
gonna
like,
follow him.
That's
Eric,
what
what do you
this
got?
whole
Yeah.
Storm Area 51 thing was about, right? Go ahead, Eric. Sorry.
Yeah, and I was trying to remember who said it. It might have been John Ramirez, but when this legislation was being formed, where the government just might come and take these things by force, it might have been Ramirez. He was saying the areas are already being surveilled, so if they want to take it somewhere else and hide it. And this person, and I wish I remember who it was, he said they need to be really careful because people know a lot more about them than the government is saying. So apparently they had a very good idea of where these things were, and their fear was they were going to be moved.
Wasn't that Greer? Didn't Greer say that?
I don't know.
I
So
forget.
Greer's
I
talked
do know
about
him, yeah.
having like plans in place to effectively storm these.
Oh, the teams.
Yeah, these weird commando teams. I don't know much. I don't think he knows much about it either, to be fair. So maybe that's what you were talking about. I don't know.
I think at the end of the day, we have to have an honest assessment of what we're actually looking at before we can even get started. Like, there's this whole other discussion about we can do civilian ufology and we can find it all for ourselves and we can figure all this stuff out. And that's a separate thing. That should happen in parallel. But we also need to know, like, what do we have? Eric Davis in this video, we might not have time to get to this clip, but he says that the Roswell crash is not even named properly. He's like, the first craft is the Magenta craft. We've had that since 1945. It was recovered in 1933. So even before Roswell, we had our hands on one craft, and we were working on it. And so then Roswell happens, we get another craft, and by the time you hear John Lear on George Knapp's show, John Lear is saying, you know, his father started the Lear Jet Company. This guy is a CIA pilot. He's saying, based on his contacts, and this is back in 1988, he's like, we have between 5 and 15 craft. 2 that still work, 1 they tried to fly. And that's, you know, that's a pretty far stretch from what Eric Davis is saying, but I don't know. All right, let's go on to this next clip where it was the UAP maneuvers. We're talking about energy. And by the way, comment people. I know we've been getting super chats. You guys are awesome. We're going to come to the comments. We're going to go a little long today. We're going to save some time for comments, but I just want to get through these last clips. Number 4, UAP maneuvers would require hundreds of times the total energy output of the U.S. It's timestamp 2119.
work in those programs. So basically mechanical, aerodynamics, aerospace, thermal control engineers, electrical engineers, and material scientists. And material science is a part of engineering often. Usually kind of overlaps chemistry as well. And they've never had a physicist like him or I. They've never had an applied physicist or an experimental physicist. And so they are really lacking in the ability to understand all these things for what there's.
So the legacy program has been very insulated and insular. So unfortunately, it's a bit of a, forgive my approach here, but a bit of an incestuous community. There's not a whole lot of outside involvement because it is so highly classified. And that's been some of the frustration and I think challenges, technologically speaking, because we haven't been able to recently apply new talent, new ideas, new theories to what may be, what the U.S. government may be in possession of.
What about the energy potential?
The energy is a question.
Some of things we're seeing, right?
Yeah, I haven't been able to access that.
Dr. Davis, can you talk for a moment, sorry, about the Nimitz incident, the calculations for the object to go from 80,000 feet within less than a second, 50 feet over the water? What type of energy requirement are we talking about?
Hundreds of times the total electrical energy produced in the United States. That's
To do
the kind of
one
energy that
maneuver.
is representative of the observed features and performances of UAP craft, especially the Tic Tac that the Nimitz in the heavens.
That's what I was saying.
Especially the
Doesn't-
Tic Tac.
It doesn't
And,
even make
so it's hundreds
sense.
and hundreds of times what the United States produces annually, like.
Listen to what he says next, though. This is
And
great.
so that compares really well with interstellar spacecraft that would relativistic or ultra relativistic being anywhere from 90 to 99% of the speed of light. The energy just is astronomically huge. So these craft, I don't have the security clearances I need to know to get access to the technical details, but I made to understand that the craft are consistent in size with the Tic Tac, even double in size of the Tic Tac. That would be up to about 100 feet long by 50 feet diameter of that type.
50
Boomerang-shaped
feet
craft, arrow-shaped craft, triangle-shaped craft, and so forth. The biggest ones that have been observed, especially that we investigated at units in 1999, involving Scott Air Force Base. That one was a 600-foot long craft, and it was about roughly 100 feet tall. And so they don't
Look
have
at
such a
Loeb.
craft like that. I've never been told that. It's usually the more manned scale.
So they couldn't move.
Yeah.
So we might be able to.
Yeah, so we can only speculate. I know Jim Caskey wrote in his book, I don't remember the title of it, but anyway, it was co-authored with Colin Kelleher, who I worked with at NIDS, and George Knapp, KLAS TV in Las Vegas. And so Jim mentioned, and Jim was the program manager for the AAS, the OSAM, the AAS WAP, and so basically he described in his book, somebody, I don't know if it was him because he never, I think he said it was him, went inside one of these craft that he had access to, and they couldn't recognize any propulsion or power devices or systems inside the craft. It was completely unusual. Travis Taylor and I have speculated that possibly they're teleporting energy from a remote distant location where the energy is produced. It's teleporting.
Never heard that before.
And
No,
how
that's
craft
new.
Can move around without having to carry a propellant or rocket engine or an advanced warp drive engine on it. That's one possibility that we speculate.
Okay, pause it there. So there's a lot to unpack here. He starts in the beginning. We kind of come into it halfway through. He's answering a question, and he's saying that basically, as far as he knows, they don't have a single physicist working on these craft inside the program. He's like, they've got engineers, they have all these different types of people, but no physicists with a physics background are working on it because the community of people they can pull from is so small. Which is interesting because that does kind of jive with a lot of what Bob Lazar talked about. But then he goes on to say that the energy requirements just are insane, and he doesn't mention anything about element 115. He's not talking about the reactor. Bob talks about it extensively. I have a diagram of the reactor on my desk under my keyboard here that Bob drew. Obviously, one hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing, or there's some breakdown here, or somebody's lying. But there's a lot going on here. What do you guys make of this clip?
The most interesting thing I saw was the gentleman on the right is U.S. House of Representatives member from Missouri, Eric Burleson. And the whole time, I thought his expression was, "Are you fucking kidding me?" He looked like
He does look
completely
that way.
blown away. I was watching him.
Yep.
When
I think
Eric
that
speaks, people listen. It's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to note that Dr. Davis is talking about the scientists who can't access this. And at the same time, in the same hearing, Dr. Ana Brady Estevez was talking about the scientists that have access to this and that have had access and have been able to talk about this more publicly in recent months. And she talked about active scientists across agencies that are looking into new science and edge science and also UAP. And that's what I think is already starting to happen because I have the feeling that something was already either cracked by an adversary or an ally. And that's why the rush is there. That's why people are trying to put this forward already with some rush.
Do you guys think that they would have given adversary companies similar things and then let them each work separately to see who makes better progress? Like, you know, when they would like bid out contracts on fighter jets and stuff, and you'd have like 3 or 4 contractors all competing for the bid, and you see all these cool old planes that they designed but they never really made. These, you know, didn't get the funding or whatever, and it's like we get the F-22 Raptor, but we could have had these other 6 planes that they were looking at. Do you think it's possible that when they were starting this all out, they could have given different companies different things, said run with it, and then just sat back and watched to see who got further along, and maybe we have different levels of progress at different places depending on who you talk to?
Yeah, why not? Sure.
It's possible, yeah.
Okay. Let's go to the last clip. This is the one that really, this is the best.
It's the one
best
that
for
set
last.
Reddit on fire.
Set Reddit on fire. I love your thumbnail, by the way, Pavel, on your video. That was awesome. The Eric Davis. With
Shout out to Gonzalo Chavez who made that for me. Thank you, Gonzalo.
Oh, it's so good. If you guys have, by the way, if you guys haven't, go check it out. Go to Psicoactivo and look at the video that Pavel put together on this bit. But this is the last clip. It's 2518 is the timestamp. And this is where Eric Davis describes the species of beings, the types of beings that we are actually dealing with behind all this. Like, who's behind these ships? He's going to tell you right now.
Let me share this. And do you have or can you comment on whatever species have been that have been piloting these craft? Are they large? Are they multiple species?
Look at Avi.
What's their size? And how many were usually on?
Avi's
like-
face.
Avi's like, I gotta hit the men's room. I'll be right back.
He's like, get it, girl.
People have talked about reptilians and insectoids. It's not that they're reptilian or insectoid, it's that they resemble to the recipient of reptile or an insect type humanoid, because they have this a head and 4 limbs and torso. So,
Large, small,
human size, human scale.
and are there how many are a crew?
Well, the Greys I'm familiar with from investigating the crash at Corona, which is misnamed crash at Roswell.
Roswell.
Crash in Perovia, Mexico. Those were Greys, those were both tall. And the Nordics are typically human sized, probably from 5-6 feet tall. And same with the people who mislabel reptilian and insectoid, they're roughly that top height too. I haven't heard anything about anything 7 or 8 feet away.
Okay, it's hard to understand what he's saying, but he says that in Roswell, New Mexico, those beings were Greys. But he says that crash was misnamed. It's actually Corona, New Mexico. It's not
Corona,
Roswell. Yeah. Okay, and then he says that they are aware of what are called reptilians and insectoids and Nordics. And the reptilians and insectoids, they just call them that because that's what they look like. That's not necessarily, he's not saying necessarily that they are reptiles or insects, but they look that way. They're all humanoid, more or less, arms and legs and a head and a torso. And then he says that up to and including the Nordics, they're all about 5-6 feet tall. But the Nordics look more or less human. What do we make of that, guys?
Where did he get that info from? Is that from the same source that we all got that info from, or is he saying that from some sort of place of authority? I don't know enough about Eric Davis to know.
He's basically confirming the core story that we all have heard for decades. Basically, everything he says is like, this is what we've been taught and learned for 40 years, at least in my whole life, anyway.
And he's getting it from experiencers who presumably could also be part of the military and the intel community because they're also going through experiences like this.
Of course.
Well, John Ramirez says specifically he personally had an encounter with a reptilian being. That was an interview. You could find it. You could look at Ramirez, a reptilian. He'll talk about it. It was I forget what podcast it was on, but that was a while ago.
By the way,
I don't know. That's a weird one.
The sound quality of that is so unfortunate because so many people are going to dismiss that entire segment and not watch that because the audio quality is so bad, and it's such a disservice. I'm so bummed about it.
Some AV tech. Some intern.
I just thought of something. So this whole reptilian insect thing, I've always thought is ridiculous. I've just never got on board with it. It might be true, but so I think I've mentioned to you guys personally a gentleman named Joe McGonigal. He was a
remote viewer,
Army Intel guy, and protege of the Monroe Institute. And there's an excellent lecture by him about 2 hours long in 2004. And he said, this is all kind of making sense. He said that the Greys are not actual living beings. And I've heard this before. They think it's a type of AI robot thing. But he says it is a suit. It's a costume. And then somebody asked him, why would you do that? And he said, well, if the suit wasn't on and you saw a cockroach, wouldn't you try to kill it? I don't know if this is true, but it's interesting that they're mentioning like some kind of insect thing, which blows my mind. And Joe McGonigal said that's what they truly look like. Has anyone else heard this, or what do you think of it?
Is it Fire in the Sky where one of the masks is ripped and you see this like insect creature underneath? Was that Fire in the Sky, or was that Communion? One of those.
No,
movies?
You're talking about V.
No,
V.
not the human
V is
skin.
She claws his face and it's a reptile underneath. Remember V.
I've loved V.
Fire in the Sky is Pat Berlinket's favorite movie, by the way. If anybody out there is wondering what to get him a DVD of Fire in the Sky. He's president of the fan club.
Movie. Yeah. Anyway.
They show those creatures in Fire in the Sky are scary, and they definitely don't look. I don't know.
Bro, Chris is going ape shit over reptilians in the chat.
Was it Communion?
It's so funny.
Communion's crazy. Have you guys watched Communion?
I haven't watched any of these films.
Chris Walken. You got to watch Communion. That dance thing. He's doing this dance with the. It's fucking.
I just started watching it again a couple weeks ago. It's so weird. It's such a weird movie.
It's such a weird movie. Communion. I am familiar with Joe McMoneagle. I'm familiar with his history. I understand that he's one of the original like OG remote viewers that came right out of Stanford Research Institute and the whole program with Hal Puthoff. That group kind of pioneered the military protocols that were later trained or taught to people like, I guess, Lou Elizondo, depending on who you believe. That's what Lou said. He did some RV stuff. So I certainly put a lot of stock in Ingo Swann's history of what's going on with these beings. But I've heard that before. Gary Nolan said on an interview, I think it was Tucker Carlson, he said that to the best of their knowledge, and this is coming from Gary Nolan, they are like a biological android, is what he described it as. It's like it's alive, but it's not alive like a living being is alive. It's alive in a different way, like a mushroom is alive. He even said, I've heard that described too, like people who have been on board the craft, they said, they've touched them. Who is the guy that is the subject of the movie Fire in the Sky? What's
Travis Walton.
Travis Walton. He said it felt like a mushroom. If you touched, when he pushed one off of him, he said the skin felt like if you touched a mushroom in the store or something, it felt very weird. Didn't feel like a solid, like another human being. If you push somebody physically, you feel like the density of that. He said it wasn't like that at all. It was like pushing a little child made out of marshmallow.
Yeah, exactly. He said when he smacked it, it was just like hitting styrofoam. Thing just flew across the room.
That makes sense to me as like it going back to that Bob Bigelow concept, that hypothesis of like if you had another layer of reality that appears to be, at least from our vantage point, non-physical. Compared to us, it would be essentially just like ghosts or some non-physical being, but that can see downward into our density of reality. If they needed to come down here, they might need a suit like that or some type of an avatar that they could put their consciousness into that could deal with us here. And then when they switch that off, it just goes like limp noodle. And there's this whole concept of containers. Just I find it really interesting. This whole notion that Bob Lazar raised about like
I got one for you.
I think this is something to do with it.
You know what's kind of weird? That in Peru there are 4 types of bodies. That one is insectoid, the other one is kind of reptilian, the other one is grayish, and the other one, which is Paloma the mummy, that one has blonde hair. So if this container theory rings any true and the mummies are real, someone was storing these in the caves in Peru.
Dude, I love this. There's an interview that Linda Moulton Howe, a presentation she did way back when. She's great, man. Like she did this one, I forget what, it was like a MUFON conference or something. And she's talking about an experiencer she was relaying this story of a person who had been abducted and taken on board a craft. And this woman was like, they have bodies, like human bodies. It looks like that scene from Dan's favorite movie. What was it? Stallone and Wesley Snipes. Wasn't Universal Soldier? What's the one where he's the cop? He's like,
what?
The Taco Bell wins the franchise wars. The 3 seashells. You know what movie I'm talking about? It was Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah,
they freeze him.
Yeah,
he's the super cop. They thaw him out in the future. They put him in this
Demolition Man.
Demolition Man. There it is. Thanks,
I
guys.
won one.
Oh, Sandra Bullock. Dennis Leary's in it. It's a good movie. But they have like a facility, and she's describing this facility, and she's like, they've got like Bacta tanks with like clones in them of humans, and they all look the same. There's like 30 of each one, and they just go on as far as you can see in any direction. She's like, these are containers, and they use them, and they switch them on, and they turn, they can plug into one, and they're walking around like a regular person. They switch it off, and the consciousness goes someplace else. The body just drops, goes limp. And this was back in like the early 90s that Linda Moulton Howe was talking about. This thing has been around for a while. This whole thread. And it's fun to like kind of speculate on it. I know none of us can really say for sure, but it's like, man, Dan, you said it best. There's this lore in this. There's such a weird, mysterious, like gray area where so much stuff has been talked about. Like if any percentage of it is true, it's just crazy.
I tend to think that if we can realistically, as humans, imagine ourselves doing it within the next 100 years, it's probably been done. And it's probably been done to an extensive amount. Like, right now, like, if I want, I can go and watch, like, fail videos of, like, robots and stuff on YouTube, like, that, like, freak out for no reason and things like that. But, like, we're just at the beginning, and, like, 50 years, 60 years from now, it's really not a stretch to imagine that like we could have things walking around that just look no different to us, act no different to us, and do all the things that we don't want to do in society.
And soon we won't be needed.
Yeah.
Well, if you spend any time on the transhumanism forums on Reddit and you look at some of the stuff that like people like Ray Kurzweil are talking about, even Elon's talked about a little bit, consciousness uploading, there's this whole post-singularity techno-utopia that there's this whole movement. And they've imagined this world where we shed our biological limitations and we become this sort of like consciousness that can just flow through these simulations and become anything. And it sounds a lot like, you know, kind of this simulation idea or whatever you want to call it. It sounds like we're calling it different things, but we're talking about basically a world where continuity of consciousness is really the master concept. Your consciousness can just be put through different systems. It can be plugged into a body. The body can go away. It's still there. You're still you. You just plug into a new body, then you keep on going. And maybe somewhere in there, we are part of this like larger system, but they seem to have mastered this technology in some kind of interesting way. I don't know.
I think there's probably just like one area of technology you need to get past, which is it's similar to like the Star Trek. Sorry, hold on. It's similar to the. Am I breaking up like a robot right now?
Yeah,
a little bit.
Okay, hold on a
I
second.
think you sound cool.
Hold on.
I mean, Ben Lamb has already been doing it with the whole direwolf thing, right? He's already doing it with animals and the public. So we already started, in a sense, haven't we?
Am I a little bit
I
clearer
think so.
now?
Yeah, you're good.
What I was going to say was we've got to get around the idea that, you know, in Star Trek we used to use teleporters and stuff in the series, and it's cool, we just disappear here and pop up there, but the reality of the situation is you're destroying this thing over here,
Yes.
and recreating this thing over here. Now that, for me, physically it seems like you're killing something here and recreating it over here with all of the memories that it used to have a few seconds before.
That's why McCoy is always freaking out about the transport.
Yeah,
He's like,
that
why
for
would you
me
go
is
with
not it's not consciousness continuity, and I think that's when we're talking about downloading ourselves into computers and things like that. I don't think that's a technology we understand yet in terms of. I think it might be possible, absolutely, to like download yourself into a computer, but do you continue, or does this really
The prestige.
incredibly advanced memory of you continue and you cease to exist? And I think that's a part of physics we don't know anything about right now. That's the part you need to get around.
The only answer that you find to that is near-death experiences. You have these, like Eben Alexander wrote in his book, was it Proof of Life or Proof of Afterlife, or I forget what the name of his book was. But Eben Alexander's a brain surgeon or neurologist who died for a period of time, and all his friends were like the best of the best physicians in their respective fields. Like he's a top surgeon or top neurologist, and he knew all these other doctors who were superstars. And his story is fascinating because he had this, I want to say it was some kind of meningitis. He had something that shut down his brain, and they actually did scans of him while he was unconscious, and they said this man has zero brain activity. He's a vegetable. But he wrote this book about this very richly detailed experience that he had while he was supposedly dead, and his consciousness went on, and it carried on, and it continued to have other experiences. It had freedom of choice. It had free will. It could do other things. He communicated with other beings. And basically, this is one of the things that Bigelow talked about. He's like, what we found in our internal study is that the people who claim to have died, as soon as their body dies, there's a period of adjustment, but consciousness doesn't die. It just, your body just goes, and the container's there, and then the consciousness is over here, and you can see your body, you can see the room, the operating room, or wherever, the car accident, whatever it is. You can float around, you can do things. Bob Bigelow, same thing. Monroe Institute. Chris, you know what we're talking about, probably better than anybody. You should come on the show and explain this. I really would like to pick your brain about it. You can, I've got 3 or 4 books on my bookshelf about just astral projection, taking your consciousness and sending it out away from your body and going around the world, or remote viewing. It's all the same thing. It seems like at bottom, there is a consciousness soul unit that originates from source, if you want to call it that, the ultimate big G God, whatever you want to call it, source. And then there could be an artificial form of life that we create that does not have that spark, but it could be almost equal to us in every other way, except for that one thing. And if you had that kind of a reality dynamic, these two types of life would be at odds with one another. You would have this one group that has this thing where we can die and we keep on going, and this other group that if they die, that's it. That would be really interesting to this machine group, the machine intelligence. And they would probably at some point want to start taking us apart to figure out how all that works. I love that whole line of thinking. It's dark, but
Really dark.
it's so dark. It's so dark. Sorry, guys. Let's do a quick stroll through the chat real quick. We've ignored the chat, and there have been so many super chats. Cole Watkins, you had a great one earlier. This is from earlier. Two Wolves says, showing Night Shift some love. Great stream today. Thanks, Two Wolves. Appreciate that. It's the group, man. It's the chemistry. We do really have a good group here. This is good vibe.
You guys have the best show. It's just the best show.
You guys make it the best show.
Yeah, you're right.
It's true. I'm going through the chats right here. I'm trying to find all our super chats. There were a bunch earlier that I saw scroll by.
It is weird how much just after all of these years, just Bob Lazar's like story just keeps getting brought back into
by the
everything
way,
we're hearing.
Xander, did you hear Dr. Puthoff talking about him?
Yeah.
He said that he can't write him off.
Can't write him off. He
From
did
Puthoff.
confirm as well that he had security clearances, not the ones that Puthoff would have expected, and he thought that if Puthoff was looking at his security clearances, he'd be like, that guy doesn't have the security clearances that someone in that kind of program would need, but that it could have just been the case that it was the people that were asking that weren't allowed to be told what security clearances because their security clearances weren't high enough. But yeah, he did say that the science that Bob Lazar talks about is troubling. He doesn't say it's ridiculous because at the end of the day, Hal Puthoff literally ran a program related to remote viewing. Like, there's science here that we don't understand, and that's completely fine. And I was really glad to hear Puthoff say something like that, where he was just open about it, which was great. But it's cool that they looked into him. They said they looked into him, and they couldn't.
Yeah.
I think the scary thing is that they couldn't disprove him, because that should be very easy. If somebody wasn't where they said they were, that should be very easy to find out. And they couldn't confirm that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Eugen says, I'm just going through super chats. Lou, fool me once, strike one, but fool me twice, strike three, as once was said by M. Scott the Great.
Perfect.
Best community on the internet, too, Chris Hobart. Thanks, Chris. Gosh, you don't have to do this, man. You're part of the team.
Look at that.
Chris is blown up. Everybody loves working here. Guys.
Xander and I had a nice late night chat last night about Bob Lazar and how he's just like, what's great about him is that his story from day one has not changed. He hasn't come up with new information 15, 20 years later. Here's what happened. Here's the beginning, here's the end, and it hasn't changed since, which is awesome. You know, you got a lot of people will come upon new information as time goes by because they feel that they have to keep contributing. Bob's like, nope, here's my story. There it is.
Was he the first person to mention S4?
I think he was, yeah.
He must have been damn close. If he wasn't, he must have been very soon after the first person. I've never heard anybody mention S4 before him, but I think at this point, we're pretty much certain that S4 exists in some capacity, don't we?
Yeah.
And to be fair, he was probably one of the first people to really talk openly about Area 51 and catching the Janet flight and everything.
Oh, for sure he was that. No question. Yeah.
He and John Lear were like the first two guys that started, because they were friends. I think they started. He took John Lear. John was one of the guys that Bob would take out to the desert to see the craft fly. And that's how he, as far as I know, got into the whole thing. By the way, just real quick, because I didn't read it earlier, and I'm reading Cole Watkins, who, by the way, designed our awesome Night Shift logo. If you guys need any logo design or graphic design work, Cole Watkins does all our design. He says, Night Shift shirt idea. Fool me once, fool me twice. Shame on Lou. Oh, I like that.
Well done.
The little
Shame on Lou.
Finger wag.
Maybe all of this stuff will come full circle, and Bob started it for me. Maybe he's going to finish it this year. Who knows? Who knows? I would love that.
I love that Bob is like, when you look at like young Bob, he is the ultimate nerd. He's the ultimate. He's got every, like the glasses, he's got the shirt, he's got like down to like almost a pocket protector. He's got a rocket car.
He's single.
I would have bullied him in school.
A rocket Honda, by the way.
A rocket Honda. By the way, I've got a Honda with almost 350,000 miles on it. I'm still driving that Honda. I'm going to drive it until it melts. As far as I'm concerned, I'm a Honda guy. But I love that Bob, like, as he got older and kind of like continued to just live his life, he gets saltier about it. And now he's like, no, guys, like, I fucking told you 100 times. Like, this is what it was. Like, he's just like frustrated that people aren't on board.
Do you get a sense that he knows he's going to get to do a victory lap at some point in his life?
I think he's going to do it this year at the Project Gravatar premiere in Las Vegas, Nevada. Visit projectgravatar.com. Check out our friends over there at Project Gravatar. I'm not wearing the hat today, but I wear it every single day, more or less, at least once. They're going to show you the ultimate Bob Lazar documentary. There's a virtual reality experience where you're going to be able to go inside the craft. They're going to show what it looks like inside the reactor. You're going to get to turn it on, do all this stuff. Project Gravatar.
Is there
coming soon?
I don't think I've ever got the answer to this, and I'm sorry, this is so off topic, like for what we actually aim to talk about.
And Chris Ramsey was just posting pictures with Bob Lazar. Sorry, Xander. He's all Chris. You got to tell us about Bob. Like, come on the show, man. We gotta find a time. He's a busy man.
He already said yes, though, on the chat. He said yes.
Okay, we'll connect after the show.
What was the significance when Bob was looking at the sport model? He mentioned a US flag on the side, like a sticker slapped on the side of it, and it was backwards. Why was it backwards? Is that a thing?
Yes.
What is that thing?
The direction into battle.
Right.
Lies behind you.
Why would they put that on it?
To claim it, maybe. I don't know.
Really? That's so American. You Americans.
I'm telling you, I know somebody had to.
Don't be jealous.
Imagine they got the craft. They've cut it open with the fucking arc laser, plasma torch, whatever. And then it's like 3:00 in the morning on a Wednesday. It's just some guy sitting around like guarding this thing. Somebody's got to take a radio or a CD player and be like, guys, I'm going to put some fucking AC/DC inside this thing. Let's see what it sounds like. Let's crank it up to 11.
I've got this night shift sticker.
There you go.
Go and stick it on there. I dare you.
You know they messed around in there. Can you imagine like somebody going in there and just listen to some...
Did anybody bring a lucky lady inside and have a fun time in there, you think?
At least one.
Let's ask the hard-hitting questions, guys.
The time of my life.
Because I would do it.
At this point, I'm kind of like, I feel like that had to have happened at least once.
Yeah, I think so. It's the American way.
Goddamn right, dude.
I've got an alien invasion of my own. My little alien just invaded my office. Hey, buddy.
What's up, little man?
What are you?
He said AC/DC, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, what would you play if let's say you got inside the craft and you found out, oh my God, it has perfect acoustics. It's perfect. You go to anywhere in the craft, you're just like, hey, can you hear me? And the guy across the craft, oh my God. Like, remember that? Have you guys ever been? There's a thing in the Whisper Tunnel in New York.
Yeah.
Like Whisper, and you can hear across the room. It's really like perfect acoustics.
Imagine the beginning of Welcome to the Jungle inside of the sport model.
I would play Cashmere.
Cashmere's good?
Yeah.
What scorching guitar solo would you want to hear?
November Rain, dude. Come on. No, I don't know.
That's
Crazy
good.
Train.
Oh, Crazy Train. That's a great one.
You want to hear the solo on Element 115 on the Night Shift album?
Absolutely, dude.
That's good. That's the Bob Lazar one. That's one of my favorite tracks, actually. I love that. The kind of power we're talking about is beyond anything you could imagine. I can't do a Bob Lazar, but it's so good.
It's astronomical.
Absolutely. Astronomical. So here's a question. Do we think there's a hybrid breeding program? Do you think there's an abduction thing still going on? I'm just curious what you guys think. I feel like at this point in our society, like an alien could literally just show up and, like, in most places in America, find anyone. I think there's enough people who would just voluntarily fuck an alien that they don't need to abduct people. And I'm curious, like, what do you guys think?
I agree completely.
You need to clip that soundbite, dude.
Like, they don't need to come down here and take anybody to do that. Like, you just,
Dude, new merch, Night Shift fucking alien shirts. Let's do it.
I feel like they'd be like, look, do you want to fuck an alien?
Dude.
Like 8 out of 10 people are gonna be like, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Clint is also so serious about it. We're laughing our asses off. I'm serious, dude. What the hell?
I just was watching I watched that clip that I sent you with David Jacobs, where he's talking about the hybrid program. And he's like, did you watch it, by the way, Pavel? You see that whole clip?
No.
It's like 6 minutes. Oh, you got to watch it. It's like 6. You give me like a 4-hour thing. You're like, watch this. Here's 18 hours of shit I just found. And I'd be like, here's 5 minutes. Can you take 5? And he's talking about,
which one is it?
it's the clip where he's talking about the hybrid breeding program. He said, like, what?
Oh,
So
yeah.
there's a program underway. People have been abducted. They take genetic samples. What is this all for? Drumroll. It's a hybrid breeding program. They're trying to create a human alien hybrid. This is part of the lore. It's been around forever. And in this story, in this interview, Dr. David Jacobs is talking about all of the interviews he's done with abductees, and they all say the same thing. They describe more or less being brought into a room, and they are shown a gigantic screen. Imagine a gigantic movie screen on a wall, and there's a huge room, like an aircraft hangar. Like, imagine hundreds of people, just some, like different species, and there's humans, and all these. There's a huge group of people, and these are all alien-human hybrids. Okay, and he says they're brought to a screen. They're shown this screen, and on the screen they see images of, like, people playing baseball in the park and flipping hamburgers at a barbecue, and they're playing frisbee, and they're doing whatever you imagine, like a perfect day in the park. Like, what would that look like? And that's what they're watching. And then the aliens telepathically are asking the abductees, can you tell the difference between you and us? Can you recognize the difference? And they go, no, I don't see a difference. And then their alien abductors say, isn't that wonderful? Soon the change will happen. The change is coming. The change is coming. It's going to be great. And we'll all be together. And then they go, and he says, this is a really, really ominous quote. He goes, and everyone will know their place. Everyone will know their place. And in that clip, he goes, now, if you just heard that once, you'd go, well, that person's crazy. But by the time you've heard it 150 times from different people, you start to go, what the fuck is going on with these abductions? Like, what is happening here? And that's really what I want to find out. I want to know, when do we get to that conversation in the UFO community?
This ties into one of the darkest aspects of anomalous health incidents with people in the military, because since Rendlesham and the John Burroughs case, there's been other people that have been injured, and whatever comes out in their DNA analysis, they don't really tell them what's in there. They keep the records for themselves. So what does that tell you? That there's something going on, that they find out. It happens after you get in contact with a craft that changes your DNA in some way. I wonder if that's connected to what you were just talking about.
There was a huge amount of interest in this subject for a period of time. And then when John Mack died and David Jacobs retired from public life because he was in failing health, and Bud Hawkins died, they stopped looking at it. But during the time they were looking at it, we're talking about the head of psychiatry at Harvard University, who was like, Danny Sheehan was his attorney, his representative at the hearing where they tried to take his tenure and fire him from the the university, the department he was running, was saying. And in all these interviews, especially there's a great one with Terrence McKenna where they're at a party or something, and he's
Oh
talking.
yeah,
to
that's legendary.
legendary. And he's like, and he even went to the Ariel school incident and interviewed every single one of those kids. And he was like, this is real. Something is happening to these people. They are being taken aboard a craft. Things are being done to them. This is not fantasy. This is a quote from John Mack. It goes, this is not how dreams behave. This is not how fantasy behaves. This is real. This is a real thing. And I'm just curious, like we've got Eric Davis saying, like talking about the program. You've got Harold Malmgren interview, which was off the chain. You've got this Matt Brown interview. You've got all this stuff coming out now. How many more layers do we have to peel back on this onion before we start to talk about abductions again and what's going on with that? Or if that was just, maybe there was something else entirely.
And Dr. John Blitch coming forward with his experience was also very important, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Abductions are the most fascinating part of the whole thing for me. Yeah, Pavel, what did he say exactly?
He talked about being handled and like sort of an operating table by two insectoid beings. And when he started like feeling afraid and started moving, they were like, don't move, don't move. You're going to be okay. Don't move. Like treating him like as if he was their son or something, or that he felt some kind of like connection with them. That was really, really strange. And if it happened so quickly, like, because before Jake Barber came forward, we were all wondering what was going on. And there was chatter about this JSOC versus Lockheed people going at it, and some kind of footage that you were going to see and all that. And then we saw Jake Barber, and like 2 days later, John Blitch comes forward. And to me, that was like, okay, so you're going straight to abductions, huh? It's a really difficult conversation that's always been there, but nobody really wants to talk about it. And someone with his credentials coming forward and talking about it, that should have opened some kind of a floodgate. But I don't see many coming forward after him, with specific abduction experiences.
It's just it's a tough thing for the government to take on because you can't protect against it. How do you tell people like, hey, this is happening, but there's nothing we can do to protect you. Sorry about that, but good luck with everything. I'm curious, Eric, I mean, you do this for a living. Have you had any of your patients have experiences with this?
One. Most
Is there
of the
anything you
people
can
I work with see things and then have a paranormal experience afterwards. I only have one person. I'm very confident they're telling me the truth. But to be honest, we haven't talked about it. So you have to be very careful with that because sometimes we don't remember things for a very good reason. And I would hate to start poking around and this troubling memory comes forth when it was properly buried in a way. So, with the rest of my clients, you name it, have their lives threatened, assaulted, sexual assault, combat, whatever. And I always ask my clients, have you experienced a traumatic event? Yes. My next question is it a problem? No. Why talk about it? Right? And so I would be careful poking around because memories may come forward that are more troubling than what they actually remember. It's kind of like poking at a healed wound. Yeah,
Right.
Don't do that.
Yeah, why open up an old wound if you don't have to? I think one of the things that fascinates me, and Dan, I'm curious about your thoughts on this too. One particular aspect of David Jacobs' work on this is that he says, he's like, look, abductees are where the rubber meets the road. Like you can talk about nuts and bolts, you can talk about woo shit, you can talk about all kinds of UFO stuff. But if you want to know what the inside of the ship looks like, if you want to know how many rooms there are, if you want to know what the pecking order is on board the craft, who are in, like where do the grays fit into the hierarchy of beings? There are answers, and abductees have them. And it's not that one individual abductee or the other has an answer. It's that in aggregate, when you take them all together. Now, remember, he was doing this pre-internet. We're talking about interviewing hundreds of people under hypnotic regression and taking diligent notes and then comparing their cases. And these are people who all over the country, different places, don't know each other, pre-internet, and they're saying these things. They're saying, look, the Greys, for example, he says the Greys are the bottom of the totem pole. They are like the gophers. They walk around, they do stuff. He's like, we know this because when abductees talk about what it's like on the ship, a lot of times they tell little details that you wouldn't think of. He's like, look, abductees are walking around with no clothes on. They are disrobed when they brought on the ship. It's the Greys that do that. The Greys fold up their clothes and put them away. When they get dressed at the end and they get returned, the Greys bring out their clothes and give them back. And that's why a lot of times you'll hear these mass abduction stories where they take 100 people all at once and then 100 people wake up in a field somewhere together and they don't know how they got there. And they are abducted together, and when they're returned, their shoes are on the wrong feet, or their shirt's on backwards, or their pants are on inside out, like things, or they're wearing other people's clothes. He's like, this is not a smooth running, well-oiled machine. It's a chaotic mess with a lot of terrified people that are humans on board, and they're trying to deal with it. And he said, when people are walking around the ship, if someone barfs, and they do, he's like, people get sick and they vomit, they get scared, they freak out, they shit, they piss. The Greys clean it up. So that's what the Greys are doing. And he's like, above them, that's the short Greys. There are tall Greys. And then he goes, above them appears to be another layer, which is what they call the praying mantis, or an insect type being. He calls them insectolins, or insectoids, insectolins, a lot of names for them. But he's like, these are like, he describes them as 7-8 feet tall, a gigantic praying mantis. That's the thing that's running the show behind the scenes. And people will see reptilians, but they're always working for the insectolins or the insectoids. So David Jacobs, through his work, has basically been able to suss out, more or less, a rough sketch of kind of how it works when these abductions are happening. And he was saying in one of his final interviews, he said, I think it was with, who was it? I think it was with Dolan. He's like, if we were taking this seriously, we'd be identifying abductees and interviewing them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, around the clock. This would be all we're doing, because these are the people who know. They've actually seen the inside of these craft. And he said it with a level of intensity that, in that same interview, he said, I'm scared for the future my sons will grow up in because of what I know. That's weird, man. That's super weird. Listen to, we talked about the Bledsoe clip of Ryan Bledsoe talking about how to contact these orbs. There's an episode on Bledsoe Said So where he reads the transcript of his father, Chris Bledsoe's hypnotic regression. And that motherfucker was abducted. He was taken on board a craft, and he is losing his shit. If you listen to him read that story back, he is terrified. And now he comes out the other side and he's like, it's all love and light, man. It's all good. They're going to come here. We're going to get to see what's inside the orbs. We're going to have a meet and greet. It's going to be great. 2026. You'll see. When the star Regulus aligns with the Sphinx in the morning of whatever. So this whole lore comes into present day with a guy who was abducted, taken on board a craft, shown a bunch of things. He comes back and he's telling us, everything's going to be love and light. It's all going to be wonderful. And then you've got one of the premier abduction researchers, David Jacobs, saying there's an event coming. It's in our future. They're training people for this. They're teaching people what to do when this event happens. On the screen, he says, when they bring these abductees in and they show them the screen, they'll show them another thing that they are shown is scenes of chaos and complete bedlam. And they're teaching them. They're telling these abductees, they're like, when this happens, you have a job to do. And your job is to stand on this corner and tell people, be calm, just keep going, go this way. And your job is to go over here and you take care of the children. And your job is to go over there and do this. And everyone will have a job to do on this day. So when I hear all these different stories and I hear bits and pieces and the Malmgren and Eric Davis and all this stuff, I'm always trying to weave it together into this larger tapestry of what is on the horizon that is making all of this come to the surface now. Is it really Is there some kind of like no turning back event that is coming?
The singularity.
Singularity.
It's I think it's very dangerous to dismiss abduction claims. I mean, it's clearly a thing. Like I said before, I think it's my most fascinating part of the entire topic. But there's something to it. You're right. I mean, I think we probably all know people who claim to be abductees and have gotten that kind of like the marching orders of when shit goes down. This is what you do. You have a purpose. You have a role. We hear it way too much for it to be bullshit, I think. But yeah, people should be talking to him a lot more. But it is a tough conversation, but it has to happen immediately.
Will you guys? I know I'm eating up a lot of our time here while I explain this story. But will you guys indulge me one last time? I really want to show this clip of him talking about this for just a few minutes. Can we show this, Xander? I'm gonna put it up here on the screen. It's let's do. I know everybody's got to probably hit the bathroom soon, so if you got to go.
I wore my diaper, dude. I'm good.
People are
Night
brought
shift diapers
to a room, and their attention is directed to a screen-like device somewhere. Now, on the screen, and here is a screen-like device, there might be any number of things to see. But you'll notice in this scene, I don't know if you can see it here, here's somebody sitting on a ledge. He's drawn this with sort of a breakaway room. Here he calls these guards. These are two small gray aliens. Here is another abductee sitting on this bench or ledge being looked at, or she's tending to little kids. You can just see their hybrid garb that they're wearing there. Abductees do not wear clothes. You can always tell an abductee in the picture by the one who's not wearing clothes. And here he is, and then there's a screen. Now, what do people see on the screen? Well, they see strange geometric shapes and colors floating slowly across the screen. That's unusual, but that's what they see sometimes. Sometimes they see verdant scenes of wilderness, beautiful, wonderful. That's also unusual. That's what they see, but that's what they see sometimes. Sometimes they see normal, everyday scenes of human life. And now we're going to jump right to the end here. And people will say, I'm seeing, like, and I think I wrote about this in the thread, I'm seeing a picnic. There's people playing ball, they're at a grill, they're talking, this and that. Now, all communication on board the object is telepathic. In their mind's ear, they'll hear, at a picnic, let's just say, can you tell the difference between us and you? And they'll look at the screen and they'll say, no. They'll think, what are you talking about? Everybody is just a normal picnic. Everybody looks the same. People having fun. And they'll say, see, isn't that wonderful? Isn't that great? Soon we will all be together. Soon everybody will be happy. Soon everyone will know his place. Soon the change is coming. There's going to be a change. Everybody's going to be happy. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And what they're actually saying is there's going to be a change coming, and we, aliens and hybrids, are going to be happy that it's coming. We don't particularly care about it, but we think it's wonderful.
I'll stop it there.
I mean, they sound like cult leaders in a weird way.
It does kind of sound like culty.
Yeah. And,
in a weird way, yeah.
And if you look at the final minutes of the Malmgren interview, how he talks about time travel and all that stuff, it's pretty startling.
Dark side of the street, man.
It's good
Dark
to be
side
here.
of the street.
You love this shit.
I live for this stuff, man. This is great.
This all reminds me of that Matt Damon film. Is it Matt Damon, The Adjustment Bureau? Where it's just...
Yeah, it is him.
It's not exactly time travel, but it's like this is quite clearly everything is planned and there's a good reason for everything, but it's these small, minute changes that are made by those that need a plan to be affected. and it's only these particular people that they need to affect to make sure that everything stays on target.
You know who made this comparison already? I think it was Chris Bledsoe when he was talking about Tim Taylor. And
Oh, really?
yeah, that Tim Taylor explained to him that it was something like that movie.
Did you guys see that movie Dark City?
A long time ago, yeah.
Remember Dark City? It's with Kiefer Sutherland and William Hurt. It's like that too. The same thing. It's like these beings come in and when they want to test out a scenario, they just take us and they implant a memory of an entire lifetime into you, and then they wake you up and now you're a new person with different memories, and they just see what you would do in a situation or whatever. Kind of like similar idea, I guess. Oh man, well, okay,
It's quite terrifying. After we're all silent afterwards because we're all just thinking about the implications of it, and it's like
It's a lot to take in.
We
there's a
don't
lot to take
talk
in.
about aliens anymore.
we ask the big questions here. We're not afraid.
We barely ever talk about aliens from Zeta Reticuli. It's all
mean,
about
Grant Cameron has been saying it for a few months now, that he initially thought that it was aliens, but now he thinks it has something to do with consciousness and potentially time travel. It's the way the information is taking us.
It's a weird taxonomy too, like the breakdown of beings, like small grays, tall grays, insects, reptiles, and then Nordics. And when you're like, well, what's a Nordic? Oh, Nordics? They're like 7 feet tall. They all have 6-pack abs, 2% body fat. They're super hot. You're like, what the fuck's going on with these Nordics?
Bunch of Fabios.
You know what I mean? Like, there's pictures. Well, who was the one? Billy Meyer, who had that picture. It was like I think he might have set the tempo for the whole Nordic conversation. But he put this blonde chick from a dating show and said that was a picture of somebody he took from a craft or whatever, and got this whole idea of what these Nordics look like. It's just interesting, how it's all this really weird sort of Star Trek aliens. And then over here, it's yeah, but the human ones they're all blonde, blue-eyed, Aryan. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Duke Nukem looking people or whatever.
Duke Nukem, nice.
I don't know. One more super chat. We got one or two more to get to. Android Paranormal says a black and white photo from 2021 indicates it was likely intended to deceive the public. This is talking about the Lou Elizondo thing from the beginning of the show. If it was planted to discredit Lou and UFO disclosure, then those writing off Lou are letting the disinfo agent get mission accomplished. Wow.
Strong.
That's strong.
It's weird that the photo he was sent was, for some reason, grayscaled as well, to minimize the color change and to basically make it look more ambiguous. I don't know if.
Do we know that he received it black and white?
That's the photo he shows isn't black and white, but it's definitely it looks like it was taken in some strange film camera, but that wouldn't. It's unlikely that was the actual.
Who walks around with a
Exactly.
8x10 print of anything anymore? I am a photographer.
You
I don't
don't?
even have prints of my shit. I do, but I don't walk around with them. I'm not giving them out to people. Just seems like a weird thing. You'd send an email. You'd be like, hey, I sent you that email. And also, what kind of intelligence guy is Lou that he would just take a photo from some dude and not know who this person is and then walk around? I don't know. I see where you're going with the comment, and I appreciate the super chat. I think it's a great question. And if it is a disinfo move, then we don't want to let the bad guys win. But Android Paranormal, I don't know. I have questions about. Lou should know what he's looking at. He should know a disinfo agent when he sees one. If he doesn't, then maybe I don't know. Rogue Science Guy says, I love that Xander is sitting in the supermassive black hole in the center of a galaxy of brilliant stars.
Shout out, Bert.
We were talking about what to put in the room with Xander to make it light up in the. Maybe you should do a star projector, one of those little. You're just floating out in space.
I think at this point I need to hire somebody to make it look good for me.
Guys, I just got this across my desk, this photo of an actual gray. I can confirm 100%. My sources have told me this is legitimate, so let's put it on the record.
Legitimate. Molnar says...
That's it. Lou's not coming on the show now.
No, we'll get...
Lou. I think we all like Lou.
I went to the same high school as Lou. Lou and I went to Riverview High School. He graduated about 9 years before I did. I was class of 99. He graduated. But we know some of the same people, I'm sure. He worked at the Red Lobster in my town, where I'm at right now. I could drive to the Red
Guessing
Lobster.
there was no ethics course. Yeah.
Well, this is high school. It was unpopular opinion. This is from Molnar. Real quick, I just want to read this out loud because isn't it strange that with all the influence Lou has, he's been mistaken about the same thing twice? I mean, isn't the perfect excuse to discredit him and not listen to what he says he means?
So what I was saying at the beginning, it's possible that somebody is giving him this info and taking advantage of how excited he gets if he's not doing it on purpose, Who is it?
I think that's probably likely the case, that he is just getting overexcited. It's just not his. I'm surprised at the fact that it's not his field to just hold off, breathe over a photo for 10 minutes before he shows it to the government. But look, regardless, he's welcome to change the perception of himself as much as he likes. If he wants to, quote unquote, embarrass himself like this, he's welcome to do so. It's his persona that he's in charge of. But my issue is literally, if anyone now searches UFO, that's what they get. And that's the disservice. It's got nothing to do with Lou now. It's now about the fact
he
that
slips up, and
it's
we're going to pay
his
the
slip up
price.
now means that if anybody new is interested in this topic, the first thing they're going to search is probably UFO or UAP, and they're going to get a photo of what he's shown today. And that requires explanation, in my opinion. He's welcome, in my opinion, to carry on as normal, but he should really recognize what the impact of what he's accidentally done is.
I think it would be really helpful to Lou's reputation if he paused the everything else he's doing and took a month to just go around on podcasts, interviews with people, and talk to people about how disinformation actually works. Mm-hmm. Like explain it in an operational sense to a bunch of lay people, like what goes on behind the scenes when they're trying to muddy the waters and confuse the issue. Like, you're the guy, you did this, you know how it works. Explain it to us.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
I don't know if I want to hear it from him, though, because he keeps getting duped.
Well, but that's fine, because then you go, look, I'm human, and the way, we all fall for it, and I fell for it. You own it. You got to own it. You've got to own it and say, look, I'm sorry, I fucked up. I got a photo, I didn't really vet it, and I showed it, and it made a mistake, and it's affecting the community. Let's talk about how this works. And let me explain it so that you guys know how to be more educated about what you're looking at the next time, and we'll all do a better job. But
to his credit, he's acknowledged it twice, which is good.
Yes,
but it shouldn't happen twice.
Okay,
are we done? Are we going to talk about Matthew Brown or no?
Fuck. I don't know if I can.
That was the entire plan for today, was to talk about him.
Oh my God.
I don't know, guys. What do you want to do?
I mean, I got nothing all day.
We're 45 minutes over. I can go another 15.
We can definitely cover it in 50 minutes, no problem.
Okay. I gotta hit the restroom really quick. You guys want to try?
No.
Okay. All right. So
we can't do that. That was a big interview, and it does warrant a
we need a full episode for that.
We need 15 minutes now. We can barely scratch the surface on that because it was quite big.
We'll circle back and see if we can do a follow up to this early next week after we get a chance to reset. Okay, guys. I have my son is literally outside the room, and he's like clawing at the door like a zombie. He's going to come in here.
That's why we can't talk about Matt Brown.
Sorry, guys.
We have duties as fathers. It's all good.
It's all good.
What happened yesterday?
With Lou, I'm sure. We'll get there.
Any last thoughts, guys, before we wrap it up for today?
No? I just want to thank you guys again for having us all here to have these conversations, and I think it's good to hold people accountable, people that we respect, and people whose opinions really matter to us. And the bad thing to do would be to stay quiet about mistakes that are made. So I think it's good that we're having these conversations. And all respect still to Lou. Thank you for the work you're doing. Keep doing it, but just dude, chill out for a second.
I love it.
Okay. I think that all the people involved at the top need better communication amongst each other. And whatever stuff of information you're getting, it needs to be vetted by the people that are clearly putting this out in a controlled fashion so they know what is going out from who and through which medium. If you guys don't do that, and I haven't seen this since I got in this space, this is what happens. So you need to talk to each other a lot more than you do. And if there's some sort of competition amongst you, cut it out, because you can't be competing in this topic. This is not fucking MTV, bro.
We're all on Team Human here.
This is
We're all
not
on the
like
same team.
movies, television. This is real life. So talk to each other. That's it. Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks, Pavel. Thanks for the kind words, and you guys are awesome. Eric, is there anything you want to add before we wrap up?
Ooh, tough act to follow. Yeah, I'm very thankful to be here. And Night Shift, I've said this before. I like working with you guys because I think this podcast has the best sense of community. Some are more toward the nuts and bolts. Some are more toward what's in the news. I think this is a really good community, and I like just the representation that we have today, right? We have a photographer, we have a therapist, we have a rock star, we have all these different people. I'm sure people in the chat all over the country, different places of the world, different values, different ages, different races, whatever. It's that we're all humans and we all find it very important. I'm just very thankful to be part of it.
Dude, thanks for that. We do have a great community. We really do. And I don't know how we do it. I really don't. I think it's just birds of a feather. We get the right people in a room and somehow the chemistry just works, and it's a great group. And it's something I'm extremely proud of, and I don't know like how you duplicate it. It's just, we've got something very unique here. And that means a lot. Thanks, man. Xander, anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
Lou's taken a lot of heat tonight. I think in closing, look, I do believe he wants the right thing to happen. I think, you've made some mistakes, and even in that tweet, you said, you're always the first to admit your mistakes, but this is not one of those times.
You have to look in the camera like you're talking to Lou.
Sorry, Lou, I disagree with your tweet. Respectfully, of course, sir, I disagree. I think you have made another mistake, and let's just sort it out, move on from it. You've got a lot to offer, so let's just be honest about it. Throw the pride of it out the window, and let's just admit it was a silly thing to do, and let's just move on quickly from it. There's the alien photo. And just quickly as well, on Sunday, this is something that our Discord community has organized independently of all of the moderators and the administrators, but we have they have organized an open mic for experiences. So if you join our Discord, you can come along on Sunday evenings if you're in the UK or Europe. I think it's in the daytime everywhere else, and talk about any experiences you may have had, and you are always received without any judgment whatsoever. There's plenty of experiences in our community, and this Sunday will be my first one. Normally family time is Sunday, but I have a rare opportunity this Sunday to attend, so I'm really looking forward to it. And if you have an experience to share, please join the Discord and join us.
Perfect. That's awesome, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk about aliens today, to talk about the weird world that we're in. It's so much fun to hang out with you guys, and it's awesome. Thanks to Chris and Area 52 for lighting up the chat and keeping us entertained. You guys are all awesome. If anyone watching or listening, if you haven't already, please go to Psicoactivo, subscribe. You can go to Outcome Counseling if you're interested in outcomecounseling.com. If you're interested in Erik's work, if you're an experiencer, you want to talk about your experiences, you want to find somebody who can relate to the unique situation presented to someone who has an anomalous experience. Outcome Counseling. is there for you. And Others from Another Mother. Please go subscribe to Dan's excellent podcast. Dan, is there anything else that you're doing that you want to let people know about since you're here?
Nothing yet. No, nothing specific. So, but thank you for the plug. We have more shows coming soon. My partner moved to the Pacific Northwest, so we're trying to figure out the best way to do it. But Erik will be coming on soon, which we're very much looking forward to, and some other guests planned soon. Some band musician types.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Super excited. Keep us posted, and we will try to reconvene, guys, next week and see if we can follow up. We still got to get through the Matt Brown interview, and there's so much more that we didn't get to today, but it's been a lot of fun. If you're not already a subscriber, please go and subscribe. If you want to support the channel, you can become a member if you like. You can go to teamnightshift.com. You can pick up a piece of merch. Thank you to everybody who's gotten something. You guys are awesome. We've got some top secret projects in the works. More to come on that soon. And we'll talk to you again after the weekend. In the meantime, keep looking up, everybody. Thanks for watching.